I believe, Cole, that there are 5 teams who could see their college football playoff hopes ended this weekend. Killed, dead in the water, not making the college football playoff. And I'm going to tell you who they are. Welcome into Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson right here on the Fan Upstate. You Tolos who are already in the stream. 25 of you already in the stream watching it. The show's not even 30 seconds old, and you're already in there. You're fantastic. We appreciate you being a part of the show, watching the show. If you're like, ooh, I want to watch the show, go on the Fan Upstate's YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, on our Twitter account. Find the Fan Upstate. Subscribe while you're there. Subscribe, like the page, whatever it is on the platform that you're watching on. And then jump in, chat it up, mix it up with the other Tolos. Dan B is always in there, JB, Mad Craft, JD, Wesley Roberts. We got a ton of Tolos who watch every single day, and we want you to jump in there and be a part of it as well. So that would be truly awesome if you would do that. If you can't, if you're just listening over the air, terrestrial radio, we appreciate that too. That's fantastic.
I forgot my light.
Yeah?
I got my light now. So those that you just mentioned watching on the stream.
By it?
No, not yet, because I don't have to look directly at it. So for those that you mentioned watching on the stream or maybe have never watched us before, Diesel, hopefully we're lit up well enough. This studio used to be bright. However,
it's dark now.
My mug and your mug is on the outside of this building. Yeah. And number one, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It might draw people away rather than in the building. But it is darker, and I'm shocked that your list is 5. 5, yeah. That's a lot of teams that will have dark and depressing weekends, possibly, according to Diesel.
That lyric, blinded by the light, revved up like a deuce, another rover in the night. I used to mishear those lyrics my entire life. I thought he was saying revved up like a douche, and I was like, well, that doesn't right.
I am so guilty of misunderstanding and mishearing lyrics. I used to be the same way. Listening to songs, I'd, read the lyrics and be like, oh, no, that didn't say that, did it? I used to be the world's worst. But
I used to think David Coverdale in Whitesnake was singing like a twister. I was born to walk alone. As a kid.
What was it really?
Like a drifter.
Oh.
Like a drifter. I was born to walk alone. When you're a kid, though, you just hear a song on the radio. See, that was back before you could just Google the lyrics.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. You had to go buy the record. If you bought the cassette, they were teeny tiny. You had to get out your magnifying glass if you wanted to read the lyrics. But we're not really talking about misheard song lyrics on the show today, even though we could take an entire show talking about it. So, Cole, I'm going to start right here. There's no order to this. We're not going 25 down to 1 or 1 up to 25 or anything like that. But it's a discussion here, okay? I've got 5 that I think are really in danger, that if they took a loss this weekend, their playoff hopes are done. You can tell me if you agree with me.
Ready.
You can tell me if you're not a chance. I'm not asking you, do you think they're going to lose? I'm saying if they lost, would their college football playoff hopes be over?
Okay.
I'm going to start with a game that I looked very hard at picking in the Upset Picks Challenge. Speaking of which, you can get your upset picks in throughout the show today, 71307. Give us your name, your game, and your spread. Number 16, Utah. Cole taking on Arizona State. A very game Arizona State. They're not ranked, but Arizona State looks good so far. They got a good quarterback, running back duo there at Arizona State. And if Utah lost this game, they would have lost back-to-back games against unranked teams. If they lose to Arizona State, currently sitting at number 16, Utah they're done. They're done. There's just too much parity in the Big 12.
Well, we talked about the Big 12 before the season started, and when you look at the number of teams in the SEC they're going to get in, Diesel, I know Utah's not in the SEC, but guess what? The SEC will have a major impact on Utah being in or out. Really, because we believe, you and I both believe, I think, that more teams in the SEC will get in than the Big 10 or the Big 12. So what people really aren't talking about a lot is how do teams like Utah, who, to your points, 4-1, already has a loss to Arizona, and if they lose to Arizona State, they still have TCU, they still have number 14 BYU, they still have Colorado and Iowa State, not to mention a USF team that's not bad. So, to your point, them not being in the SEC hurts them in this aspect of the conversation, and I 100% think you're right. If they lose Saturday, in my opinion, there's no way – I don't want to say no way, but it's going to be a steep hill to climb in that conference.
Yeah, they got a long way to go. And if they lose this week, they'll fall from 16, maybe probably outside of the top 20. And then you're talking about them clawing another 8 spots up the list to even have a chance.
Yeah.
Really, you got to climb 9 spots to really have a chance and to guarantee your spot in the college football playoff. This is a question mark. I'm saying no, this team is not in danger. Even if they lost this weekend, Alabama. If Alabama loses 2 in a row to Vanderbilt and South Carolina, number one, you couldn't keep me away from the studio on Monday because the phone calls will be absolutely glorious. But no, Alabama being at number 7 right now, if they lose to South Carolina, they've still got so many opportunities left down the stretch to get back into the playoff discussion. 4 ranked teams left on that schedule, 4 ranked SEC teams on that schedule. And that's like powering up, a win against a ranked team.
So you're saying they'd be okay?
I think Alabama would be okay. They lose to South Carolina, in my mind, depending on what else happens around them. But in my mind, Alabama falls from probably 7 to maybe 12 or 13, in which case after that, they still have opportunities to impress. They may not be able to seize on those opportunities, but I'm just saying, I think if Alabama loses to South Carolina, they still have a chance, so their hopes are still alive.
And for those that just tuned in, Diesel's asking the question, whose college football hopes would be over if they lost this weekend? I think Alabama's the most fascinating one on the list, Diesel. Alabama, in my mind, if they lose this weekend, they're out. They're out. They're out.
How far do you think they fall?
I think they fall to 16, 17.
Really?
Yeah. You lose to Vanderbilt and South Carolina in
that's
football?
Just disrespectful.
It is. It should be. It should be. In football, we're not talking about baseball. We're talking about football on Saturdays.
7 to 17.
I think they dropped
with an SEC.
A lot.
Home loss.
Yeah, I think it'd be eight to 10 spots. Wow. 8 to 10. You can't lose.
No, there's no way.
And also, when you look at them getting in the postseason, like it's not just the South. If they were to lose to South Carolina, it wouldn't be Diesel just the South Carolina loss. It would be the culmination of back-to-back weeks losing to Vandy and South Carolina. Gamecock fans and Bama fans might be on suicide watch.
Kalen DeBoer get his tires slashed.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he better – who was the coach you brought up that moved because there were threats? I mean, you remember that in the NFL?
The head coach of the Lions.
Was it Dan Campbell?
Dan Campbell, yeah.
The coach for Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, would need to do the same thing, except it'd need to be on a private island.
You need to buy a cabin on the woods.
Oh, God, it'd be terrible. I really do, man. I think they drop 8 to 10 spots. And to answer your question, I think if Bama lost this weekend, playoffs.
Okay, so here's a team in a very similar situation, top 10 team in the SEC that plays a weak football team this weekend, but still has a lot of room down the line, Cole. They still face Texas on the road, Ole Miss on the road, Tennessee at home. They get a game, Georgia Tech, in-state team at the end of the season. If Georgia lost this weekend to fall to 4-2, losing to Mississippi State, are they all the way out of the playoff picture? I say no, by virtue of still having 3 top 10 teams on the schedule. If you lose this football game, Cole, and you go 3-0 against those 3 remaining top 10 teams, you're back. There's no way you're not in.
You're 100% correct. There are still plenty of opportunities, Diesel. And look, let's remember one thing. The game that you just mentioned before this one, South Carolina, Alabama, these all relate to each other. Yeah. We're talking about relatives. Why do I say that? Well, let's say
because they're all related to each other.
They're all related.
Kissing cousins.
Not Alabama.
Kissing cousins. They call them around here.
I didn't mean to take a shot at to take a shot at Bama. But here's what I mean. Let's say Georgia, they go undefeated. Okay, let's say they win out, which would be mighty impressive. Their only loss would be Bama. Well, how does that relate to what we just talked about with Alabama and South Carolina? That Alabama loss, there's still plenty of football to play. That Alabama loss will be looked at differently today versus 1 month, 2 months from now, depending on what Alabama does. If Alabama rebounds, how does that loss? Because that's the only loss that Georgia has thus far, right? Is the Alabama loss 41-34, where it was a blowout in the first half. Georgia came back in the second half and almost pulled it out. I think you're 100% correct. Georgia's still in an okay position. Look, especially with the playoff expanded, to your point, if they were to go beat Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, 3 top 10 teams, Diesel, and not slip up against the other teams like a Georgia Tech or a Florida, they're number one. They're probably number one team in the nation.
Wow. That would be a precipitous fall and then a meteoric climb back to the top of the AP Top 25 college football playoff top 25. One more to go, Cole, in the SEC,
okay.
At least in the top 10 in the SEC, that I think is in danger this weekend. If Tennessee lost to Florida, that'd be a huge perception hit, because no matter, I mean, they still got 4 and 5 stars all over the field in Gainesville. The problem is that would be a huge perception hit, because the AP voters, they think Florida sucks, like real bad sucks, and is on the verge of firing their head coach. I think if Tennessee goes down to Florida this weekend, they drop maybe to 15, 16, and then they've got Bama, Georgia coming up. Even if they could at best split those games, I don't think Tennessee's getting in as an at-large. So I think Tennessee is in real danger of having their college football playoff hopes dashed this weekend.
They are, because they have the loss to Arkansas. If they were to drop to Florida, that'd be 2. And then if what you said happened, Diesel, and they split those remaining with Georgia and Bama, that'd be 3 losses.
And Florida's won 2 in a row.
Right.
Mississippi State, UCF, I get it, but still, they've won 2 in a row. They may be feeling themselves a little bit right now.
Look, you're in great danger if you're Tennessee. And look, again, to be very clear, this is not what you and I think are going to happen. But if they were to lose to Florida at home in Knoxville, in Neyland Stadium, oh yeah, you can go. What are they ranked now, by the way? Are they 8? So they'd be, what'd you predict?
15, 16?
I think so. I think maybe 17, right? The unranked Florida team that doesn't even have a head coach, like is just halfway tied on. The umbilical cord's halfway tied on between him and Billy, the university, and Billy Napier. I think 18, 17 might be realistic, but no, I'm with you on Tennessee.
Yep.
That'd be an all-time low in terms, not an all-time low of the program, but in terms of being where they were at the beginning of the season. Losing to Florida would not be good.
So I got Utah out with a loss. I've got Tennessee out with a loss. Those are my 2 so far. Cole, you say Alabama loses, they're done.
I think so.
They're out of the picture. I don't think
so.
Alabama is ever out of the picture when it comes to the playoffs. I mean, this is a Brand Power Invitational. They love putting that red helmet up there with the block numbers on the side. They love that kind of stuff, man. It looks good on TV. Missouri. It's over for Missouri. There's no way Missouri's going to lose this weekend. But we're talking Schadenfreude situation.
Yeah, no doubt.
Missouri going on the road at UMass. That's an easy one. Ends the discussion.
Very easy.
Because they're sitting at 21 right now. They lose to UMass. Again, not going to happen. They're falling to like bottom end of the others receiving votes category.
And by the way, I don't think it'll happen. However, I will tell you this on Missouri. I texted you on Saturday. They're a fraud.
Yeah.
They're not going to lose to UMass, but I'm putting Missouri on fraud watch right now.
Okay, this one is a little bit tougher, Cole. Number 18 Oklahoma versus number 1 Texas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma loses. They now have 2 losses. Probably fall. I don't know if you fall far losing to the number 1 team in the country. Depends on how you lose to them.
Where are they at now?
18. But I do think Oklahoma still has enough on the schedule that they could climb their way back in. Now, it's a long shot. I don't think Oklahoma's completely toasted. You lose to Texas, you may fall to like 19, 20 at the lowest, and then you still got 3 ranked opponents ahead.
So, again, going back to perception now versus perception 2 months from now, Diesel, that one loss that Oklahoma has is Tennessee. Right now, that's viewed as a good loss, as long as Tennessee doesn't crap the bed down the stretch, right? If Tennessee craps the bed, this conversation you and I are having about Oklahoma is way different.
It shouldn't matter much. You know, they should always look at things like 3 weeks ahead of when you played, 3 weeks after you
Sure.
played, because that's really indicative of the kind of team you were at the time. Injuries can happen. The team just changes over the course of a season.
Well, here's the answer I'll give you on Oklahoma. If they lose this weekend to Texas, which I think they will.
Yeah. Still in?
They're still in as of now, but when you look ahead out that windshield, it doesn't look good because you still have Ole Miss, you still have Missouri, you still have Alabama, and you still have LSU, Diesel. So, like, Oklahoma's in an interesting spot here. They need every win they can get. I just don't think losing now would put them out. But ask me that question 3 weeks from now, I think they're on the outside, way outside looking in.
Here's a fascinating one, Cole. Sitting right now at number 11, Notre Dame. Notre Dame plays Stanford this weekend at home. What are you thinking there? Notre Dame versus Stanford. That would be 2 losses, including the Northern Illinois loss. I think they're so far out. With after that, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, a good Virginia, a good Army, and USC. I don't think there's enough there to claw back in.
There's not. And the problem is perception, Diesel, that we talk about a lot, especially in this conversation with the committee. Perception is going to be reality in a lot of cases. And
but Notre Dame gets so much of the benefit of the doubt.
They do.
It's absurd.
But NIU and Stanford would be horrible losses. There's nothing pretty about losing to Stanford.
You're only in with Notre Dame's schedule. You're only in the playoff if you run the table but lose to A&M and USC. I think you could lose those 2 games and still be in the conversation as Notre Dame, but nobody else.
I told you yesterday. Remember, they're going to lose to Army and Navy. Just kidding. I don't really believe that. But no, to answer your question, I'm telling you, if they lose this weekend to Stanford, it's going to be a tough hill to climb for the Irish.
Okay, Cole. Last one that we're going to get to.
Okay,
number 10, Clemson. Number 10, Clemson. They go down this weekend.
I'm glad you saved that for last.
Do they have a chance to still make the college football playoff? Because they will have lost to Georgia. They will have lost to Wake Forest on the road. Clemsoning may be back at that point. You're now in a 2-horse race, 3-horse race to go win the to get to the ACC championship game, which puts Miami in the fast track and the best seat in the house to go get that. SMU there as well. I'm not sure the ACC is going to get a 3rd team in the playoff this year. I think you get 2.
I'm not confident in it. Right?
Yeah, I think Clemson goes down this weekend, and I think they take themselves out of the playoff.
So if they were to go down, it would feel similar to the overtime loss last year against Florida State, right? Clemson already had a loss to Duke. They lost the opener to Duke last year. September 23rd, they lost to Florida State in overtime. After that game, Clemson fans kind of felt like it was over, right? In terms of because it was a 4-team playoff last year, right? And after 2 losses, there's no way in the ACC you're going to make the 4-team playoff. It would definitely feel like it did on September 23rd for Clemson if they lost to Wake Forest on Saturday. Again, I don't think they do, but if they did, I'm telling you.
I thought they were going to lose to Duke to start the season last year.
No, I don't. Again, I don't think it would be the death knell, but boy, even though the playoff is expanded to 12, boy, do I think it'd be mighty tough. I'd lean no on that.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at the rest of the schedule, you got Pitt on the schedule at 22. Pitt is a very shaky team right now. They're 5-0, but I'm just saying they're in a shaky position as far as their ranking and their perception and the way that the playoff committee looks at them. So you go out and you beat a Pitt. Oh, big deal. You beat Pitt. You're supposed to beat Pitt.
And by the way, Diesel, this game last year, Wake Forest Clemson, was only a 5-point win. Ooh. Only a 5-point win. Just
scary times for the Tigers.
Again, I know it's in Winston-Salem. I don't think Clemson will lose. Could Wake Forest cover? I think they could. I think Wake Forest
could cover. What's the spread on this one?
If it hasn't changed, let me look. Again, I apologize. Give me 1 second.
20.5.
Yeah, I think Wake Forest could cover. You said 20.5.
20.5
I think so.
Right now.
I wouldn't bet on it, like bet the house on it, but I'm just saying
either.
Diesel, that's a game to look at. I'm not talking about upset picks. I'm not talking about Wake Forest winning outright. But in terms of covering the spread, I do think that would be a possibility. And I'm glad you saved Clemson for last because obviously our Clemson Tolo's out there, 71307. I think they may disagree. Texter says, seriously, you guys sound like ESECP, whatever that says. The SEC only plays 8 conference games. It should be easier for them to get teams in the playoffs. Alabama, UA. Is there more to the text? No, I don't think so. I don't know what the texter means there by that. Texter says the ACC is so weak this year. 2 losses. I say you're out, JT and Greer. Diesel, it's hard to disagree with that text. Again, JT and Greer, the ACC so weak, 2 losses, you're out. Any
2 losses
disagree?
overall or 2 conference losses? That's the big question.
Yeah.
And remember yesterday when we talked to Kelly Ford, he said that Clemson has already gotten, statistically speaking at least, Clemson has gotten out of the shadow of that 34-3 loss.
They're out of the shadow, but guess what? Shadows don't take long to come back, right? You know, that's the problem. 71307's the way you can text into the show. If you hear Diesel and I say the word Tolo and you don't know what we're talking about, turn on, leave on. Turn it on, leave it on. That's what we ask you to do right here on this show. Our loyal listeners, that's what you are, Tolos. I have a question for you, Diesel, as well as our Tolos in the very next segment. I heard some really good audio from the West Virginia head coach last night. I want to know, if you were a head coach at the college level, talking about football here, what would be your trademark? What would be your stick? Kevin Kelly is a guy that I'm going to bring up in the next segment. Maybe our Tolos don't know who that is, but Tolos, think about it and text in. What would you be known for if you were a college football coach? Diesel and I will give you ours next. Have you ever heard of Kevin Kelly?
I have not.
He coached at PC. So that article that I put in the link, hold on. Let me send this. Diesel, the question for you as well as the Tolos out there, if you were a head coach, if you were given that opportunity, number one, I would want to be a fired head coach at a higher level more than I'd rather be a head coach, right? Less responsibilities, you get a ton of money, big buyout. However, I asked the question, what would you be known for? What would your stick be? What would your trademark be? I have some audio from the West Virginia head coach, but I also have a story that I have to read to you. Have you heard, Tolos, of a guy named Kevin Kelly? Kevin Kelly, he was a college football coach here in the upstate. He coached at Presbyterian College. Diesel, his stick, and I mean stick because this is a big one. Kevin Kelly was known for never punting. So it didn't matter if it was 4th and 1 or 4th and 10 or 4th and $1.5 million. Kevin Kelly never punted the football. And that's what he was known for, right? Which it's kind of a double-edged sword because you're really not known for like winning games. I don't know if it's a good thing, right? But this is what you're known for. And I asked the question, if you were a head coach, like when you play NCAA 25, if you have the new game, if you play Madden, what is the one thing that you consistently do that you are known for? I also have some audio that spurred this question, Diesel. The head football coach at West Virginia was talking about coin tosses. We don't think that a coin toss is this vital part of a game, do we? Well, evidently we're wrong if we don't, because here's what the West Virginia coach, Neil Brown, had to say about coin tosses.
People ask me, well, why do we take the ball all the time? And I was telling our team the other day, the reason we take the ball is because if you do that over the course of a year, you're going to get more possessions. And so that's why we take the ball. A lot of teams defer. We take it because I think, the more possessions you got, the more opportunity to score. And also I feel like on the road, if you can get ahead, then man, you really take the crowd out of it just a little bit. And the crowd is a factor here because the noise stays in. But we were able to get that field goal, like to score a touchdown, but we were able to get that field goal. And then we got that stop, on the second set of downs, and then we were able to go score a touchdown. And I thought that was critical in how the game unfolded.
Again, I never thought of that, but he says the coin toss, he always wants the ball.
Ask me, well, why do we take the ball all the time? And I was telling our team the other day, the reason we take the ball is because if you do that over the course of a year, you're going to get more possessions.
So you're getting more possessions.
Based on what?
And I guess, if you go back and look at an entire season, a season in its entirety, I'm guessing that his thought process is if you take the ball first, you're going to have more possessions because let's say if you went on defense first, Diesel, they put together an 8-minute drive, you go 3 and out. I don't know exactly what he's basing it on, but that's his philosophy. If you take the ball in the course of a season, you get more possessions. Evidently, the West Virginia head coach has done some research here, right? Neil Brown explained what his stick was. I don't know that my stick would be never punting like Kevin Kelly, who coached at Presbyterian College. In his first game as head coach, Diesel, Presbyterian had 7 opportunities to punt the football. And in those 7 opportunities, he punted 0 times. So I asked the question to you as well as our Tolos. By the way, I'll get to that text. I see the text from the 419 about Kevin Kelly. What would your stick be, Diesel, if you were a head coach? What would you be known for?
I'd be known for air raid.
Oh, really?
Throwing the ball all over the field.
No running backs, huh?
None. 5 wide every play.
So when you play,
the fans would love it.
Well, I think they would. And there are a lot of air raid guys out there. When you are playing NCAA or Madden or whatever you grew up playing, did you just never run the football? You just don't believe in it?
Well, I like to run the option on those games.
Oh,
I ran the option a lot.
Speed option or
speed
like
option.
triple? Okay, gotcha.
Speed option. So first of all, how is Kevin still employed by PC?
No, he's not.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where he is today.
Now, if your shtick is that you never punt, but you always have highly creative play calls on 4th down, okay, like you got something there. But if it's just like, we're gonna run a regular play,
yeah,
I don't know about that. I don't know if that's the smartest strategy there.
Texter
4th
did,
and 25. Let's run the ball. What?
So I don't know where he's coaching at today, but Texter chimes in on the text line 71307, which you can do. Also, a couple of messages on the stream. Texter says, Coach Kevin Kelly has won 9 state titles. Now, Texter, when you say state titles, do you mean at the high school level? I would assume, if you don't mind elaborating. And built one of the most successful programs in the country at Pulaski Academy before Presbyterian. He's a winner. Thank you, Texter, for that, because I know he was at PC. I don't know where he is now or what he did before, but I do know that he had a lot of – look, I'm not saying he wasn't a winner. I'm just saying when that's what you're known for, never going for it on 4th down, that's what people are going to talk about. They talk about Nick Saban because Nick Saban won championships. They talk about Kevin Kelly. I almost said Brian Kelly. They talk about Kevin Kelly because he never punted the football. Diesel says his would be air raid. Madcraft says, I'd be the first coach who wears a monocle and has a pocket watch. Only Madcraft. Only Madcraft. I know what Cristobal's stick is. What is it, Madcraft? What is your coach's stick? That's a good question, too. What's your coach's stick? JB says, my offense would be triple option air raid hybrid. What in the heck is that? Triple option air raid hybrid. How in the world would you run both? Because you have to have, like, the personnel to run triple option. And then you also have to have a completely different personnel to run air raid,
wide
right?
receivers don't really go to triple option schools because they know they're not ever going to get the ball.
They block, right? They're blocking receivers. And I think that's a fascinating –
Georgia Southern.
Right. Do they still run it, by the way?
No, they gave it up like 2 years ago. And they're actually getting pretty good at running the football. Was it Clay Helton?
Yeah.
Is at Georgia Southern. He's brought a lot of those Power 5 USC concepts to Statesboro.
It's funny you say that because Georgia Tech, they used to run it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do it anymore.
Nope.
I can't recall. I mean, I know you have your armies your navies rather that still run the option, but big programs. Obviously, it's not prevalent at the highest levels in Division I. JB, that wouldn't work because to Diesel's point, in the triple option, your receivers have to block. And when you talk about today's game, like even at the highest levels of college football, Diesel, and the NFL, I've thought about this a lot with the NFL. What would it look like if an NFL team tried to run the option? Because you have personnel that could do it. However, as you mentioned, wide receivers are the biggest divas in the game, and they wouldn't go for it in the league because of the money.
I'm only saying this is a joke, Cole, but I would bring back the veer.
Okay.
The veer offense. It's an option offense designed for teams that don't have a very good offensive line.
Sure.
But I'm shocked, Cole, that not one person, as much as people, high school or college football fans are traditionalists, not one person said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring back the power eye. Nobody.
So I'll tell you this. I love the power eye, and I really do believe the power eye still works.
Is anybody still running it, like really running it? I mean, concepts is one thing. Occasionally putting in the package is another thing. But I'm like, does anybody still really run the power eye?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Here's my biggest problem with the Baltimore Ravens. They have Lamar Jackson, Diesel, who we all know is an athlete who likes to zone read, spread it out, and get his playmakers involved. To his left or to his right, he has Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, in my mind, is a power eye running back, right? Much like Ezekiel Elliott was. You talk about big backs like Leonard Fournette in the SEC.
Downhill, instead of picking it up from the side and coming in.
Listen, that's my biggest problem. I've said that since they drafted since they traded for Derrick Henry back in the offseason. Derrick Henry is going to be fine in this offense, but can you imagine Derrick Henry in a power eye with Lamar Jackson having the option to pull it? Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I would sign up for it. That would be one of mine. I'd love to bring the power.
I've never really claimed to be, a genius when it comes to diagnosing football. Is the reason why nobody still runs it just that defensive linemen have gotten so big and so strong that you're just not going to find a lot of success, or did it just kind of fall out of fashion?
Well, I think the RPO has a lot to do with it. The run-pass option. Everyone's gone to the run-pass option. Even in the NFL, which 10, 15 years ago they didn't. So to answer your question, I do think it has a lot to do with the defense, especially in the National Football League. But I'm telling you, bring back the power eye. I'm 100% okay with it. I'm in favor of it. I would have – now the difference is with a power eye, Diesel, you have to have – and I guess this is why colleges and NFLs don't run it as much as they used to. But you kind of have to have personnel that are built for that, right? Like every college team doesn't have personnel, even NFL teams, scat backs, guys who can really get out to the perimeter and who are designed for RPO-style offenses. They're not built for the power eye. But I'll tell you what, since you brought it up to the table, I'll take that one. That would be mine. I would love to bring it back.
It seems as if the power eye would be very successful in the Big 12 where they hadn't played a whole lot of defense for a long time. It'd be successful. Well, would have been successful in the old Pac-12 where people didn't play a whole lot of defense, right? It was a lot of throw it all over the field, spread some guys out. You need faster linemen who can get off the ball and chase guys down in space. It seems like if you could go at them with a huge offensive line, huge running back, I feel like that would be successful.
Yeah, it would. Texter says, by the way, Kevin Kelly is now in Arkansas coaching high school football. I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. JB also said that on the stream. Going back to JB's point about triple option and air raid, he says, I'll sit down and figure it out. It would work. Trust me.
Isn't triple option and air raid just RPO?
Boy, that's a conversation to have. I really like, I'm not a hater of air raid. So I know you said air raid. However, my only problem with that is I'm big on like controlling the pace of the game. And again, I know there are a lot of successful air raid offenses out there, especially, on the West Coast. We've seen over the years, coaches be successful with it. But I have also, Diesel, seen air raid style offenses come back to bite teams in the you-know-what, simply because they didn't know how to control a game with a run game, run out the clock, be proficient in time of possession, things like that. When I used to play, I don't have a console anymore. You and I have talked about it with the new EA 25 that came out. I used to play college and pro, and I was the opposite of you. I wanted to run the football every single down.
That's boring.
It's so boring. However, you're right. But you know what's more frustrating than anything is if you're a defense and your opponent is running the ball and you can't stop them, there's nothing more frustrating than that. So give me the power eye. I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't thought about it, but I'll definitely take it. And it's interesting. I don't know if the Kevin Kelly guy in Arkansas who coaches high school football now, I don't know if he's evolved at all, but I would love to know and sit down with him and ask him what exactly it was, Diesel, that brought him to the theology of never punting the football. Obviously, analytics had to be involved.
It feels gimmicky, right? It feels really, really gimmicky.
Video game-like?
Yeah, it feels like, all right, this can work at the high school level if you've just got some crazy talented athlete. But outside of that, like it feels like you're just going to give up a lot of possessions in your own territory.
Joe on the Facebook stream says, you talk about offenses, the high school that I graduated from in 1982 and from whom I started all 4 years with still runs the same offense to this day, the Delaware Wing Team.
That's a great name for an offense.
I've got to research it.
There's the Wishbone that Wofford ran for a really, really long time. Those offenses can be really good. They can be really, really frustrating. Fascinating conversation, Cole. When we come back, I'm going to ask you, Tolos, another time. I need your upset picks. We are now sitting at how many upset picks do we have? 64 upset picks. I think we can get to 100 upset picks by the end of the show today.
Let's do it.
We'll get yours next. Texter says Kevin Kelly went 2-9 at PC in one season before resigning and going back to high school to coach.
Ooh.
While it was a fun idea, his no punt philosophy failed miserably at the college level.
Ouch.
Look, we've seen a couple of different programs, franchises, leagues try like gimmicky things over the past couple of years. And it gets people's attention. It gets sports talk to discuss it.
Yeah.
You remember a couple of years ago when I think it was Arena League or something, somebody was trying this thing where the coach would decide what kind of play he was going to run. And then the fans had the ability in real time to like go on an app and vote what play they were going to run or vice versa. Like the fans would decide, hey, it's 3rd and 7.
Dowell Loggins needs that.
Yeah, it's 3rd. South Carolina fans, you'd never lose a football game if you ask yourselves, because Dowell Loggins doesn't have a clue what he's doing. But no, they would say, all right, it's 3rd and 9. Do you want to run the ball, throw the ball, or take a knee or something? And whatever the fans voted that they should do is what the coach had to do. So if the fans said, hey, run the ball, you had to run the ball. I mean, think how fast, Cole, that gets out of hand of people just jumping in to troll. I mean, we've seen people jump in with AI fake images of hurricanes. People will troll literally anything.
Sure.
So why wouldn't fans of the opposing team know exactly what their defense is good at stopping and then log in and tell you to run the ball up the gut every single time?
It's interesting. And just to put a bow on it, the last thing I'll say is I know it'll never happen, but I do want to see an NFL team run the triple option. I don't know if it'll work. I just want to see it happen.
You need Lamar. You need Patrick Mahomes. Somebody like that.
Somebody, right?
Yeah.
Not Andy Dalton.
Let's put Bryce Young out there. Why not? If he gets blasted 10 yards deep, that's fine. Nobody's going to miss him. Hey, Cole, it is day 2 of the Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge for week number 7. We've got a huge list of Tolos who have already gotten their upset picks in. I see you there for Beckham. Just Beckham. Beckham wants USC over Penn State -4. Beckham, I think he's new.
Is that Odell?
Yeah.
Odell in the upset picks challenge.
Or
Odell
David.
Beckham? David Beckham. Yeah, could be.
Your wife's really hot.
Or neither of the two.
Yeah, could be just a coincidence. But Tolos, if you haven't yet gotten in your upset picks for week number 7, do it now. Text in 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Give us your name, your game, and your spread. Beckham has got it figured out. Beckham is his name. USC over Penn State is his game. And the spread is 4 points.
There you go.
Beckham knows what's up. Brian Andrews is taking USF +6 over Memphis. Let's see. We've got Jersey Joe taking UAB +26 at Army. Big one. And, God, that's Trent Dilfer's team, too, by the way.
And just so you know, I have my upset pick, second one.
You don't get a second one. You don't
what
get
do
a
you
second.
mean?
I texted you. I texted you middle of the third quarter. I said, Cole, I don't think you made a very smart upset pick. You were down like Jacksonville State was up on, was it New Mexico State?
That's right.
Like 49-7.
Yeah, they covered.
The third quarter? In the third quarter?
And I watched the game.
Cole,
that's the best part.
What were you thinking?
And after the first drive, I was like, yeah, that pick didn't hit.
No, I took Coastal Carolina +9.5 against James Madison.
That's right.
Is it?
I think it is.
That game tonight? I took that one because Coastal is so consistent offensively. I think they're averaging 38 points a game this year. James Madison is clearly a better team.
Yeah.
But James Madison has dropped big games at home before, and that one's down to 8 points now, by the way. So I'm getting an extra 1.5 on that one. In case you're wondering, we lock the spreads in as of 3 p.m. on Wednesday. And then everybody who picks the same game, no matter whether you pick it Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, everybody who picks the same game will get the same number of points no matter what. So you could take, for example, tonight, there's 3 games that you could take if you just wanted to go ahead and get it out of the way.
Like I did.
You could take Middle Tennessee +4.5 at Louisiana Tech. You could take UTEP +20 at Western Kentucky. Those are just the games that are being played tonight. And it's always a strategy thing, right? You want to take the 3, 4, 5 point ones that are more likely to happen.
Like Chris Phillips did. He took 3.5.
Yeah. Who did Chris Phillips take?
It surprised me when he said it because
he took Ole Miss at LSU plus 3.5.
3.5. Very, very small margin.
Yeah.
However, like you said, it could end up.
And the question is, where is Chris Phillips in this whole challenge?
He hadn't hit yet.
He's never hit.
No,
not yet this season.
Yet.
Oh my!
Not yet.
Even if he does hit, Cole, he puts himself in a dangerous position where 4 weeks from now he could have 0 points.
He's got to start
over
going
again.
home runs like I did.
Don't forget, guys, if the way this challenge works, you get the number of points by which the underdog is a dog added to your season-long rolling tally. If you don't get in a pick at all 1 week, you lose 2 points. If you do get in a pick and get one wrong, you lose 1 point. So that's our way of keeping you coming back week in and week out.
And your Coastal game's less than 4 hours from right now.
Yeah.
Coastal, James Madison. That's the best game of the night. It really is.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
MTSU
it's
and
good. See, I'm
Louisiana
down with Thursday night football.
Oh no!
I don't like
Tuesday.
I don't like
Wednesday?
Tuesday. Wednesday. I don't like Maction.
I loved it, man.
What are they even calling like midweek Coosa?
I don't know
games.
I'll tell you this. I went home last night.
Tuesday.
And I never would have in the past, but I watched New Mexico State and Jacksonville State and loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Did you put any actual money on this game?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
No, just my upset pick. Like you said, went ahead and got it out of the way on the next week. I'm already looking at spreads for next week. I'm going to be ahead of y'all. That was my strategy, by the way. All right, listen and react. Diesel and I will play the game. You Tolos can play along as well. Next, Shane Beamer audio getting you Gamecock fans ready for Alabama. Next. We're going to get into this audio from Shane Beamer earlier in the week, getting you Gamecock fans ready for the matchup against Alabama on Saturday. But Diesel, you came in during the break and told me that you and your wife have already secured tickets for a concert for Carolina, something that Luke Combs and a few other artists are doing at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte to benefit all of those impacted by Hurricane Helene. First of all, incredible for those guys to do that. That's really awesome. The proceeds are going to those impacted, again, like I said. However, I guess I'm the only one in the Carolinas. I just went to concertforcarolina.com, clicked Get Tickets. And Diesel, as of right now, 4:01 on the 10th of October, it says the cheapest ticket is $2,000.
No way.
What am I doing wrong?
I have no idea. If my wife jumped into the ticket queue at exactly 10 a.m. this morning, and like within seconds, she was 19,000th in line.
So
did
the ticket prices just go up or run out? Like, is this only VIP left? Tolos, have you got your ticket? I guess every Tolo, every person in South Carolina and surrounding states, I mean, literally.
You want to give $2,000 to hurricane relief charity?
Well, you have to have $2,000 to give $2,000.
We work in radio.
Are you kidding
$100
me?
bills just fall out of the sky around here.
That's true. Let me keep.
That's what people think, at least.
Here's one on the sideline, $1,699. Here's one for $2,000. Here's floor tickets, Diesel, right beside the stage for $2,000. There's nothing in the upper deck. There's nothing in the middle bowl. I mean, absolutely nothing here. So Tolos, I mean, what have I done wrong? Have I waited too late? I guess I should have been on it this morning when everybody else was.
6 hours too late.
I mean, have they sold this sucker out that fast?
So,
oh my word.
Yeah, that's 75,000 tickets for this event, plus floor, plus field level, right?
And the Panthers can't fit, they can't get 30,000 there. Good grief.
You could set up tickets, a ticket sale for a Panthers season opener and have it open for the whole year leading up to the game, and they wouldn't sell out.
Well, Tolos, I hope you got your ticket. Diesel got his. I'll be hearing about it the next Monday. Because
apparently we're up in the nosebleeds.
Way up there. Hey, you got tickets,
Who cares, right?
You got tickets. You're benefiting the Carolinas, Western Carolina. I don't know. I mean, I hope
I'm going to turn my back on
dinner.
Eric Church, though, because Eric Church is a turncoat. He's a Tar Heel fan. Eric Church went to App State and is a true blue, diehard, puts on the powder blue gear all the time. UNC
wonder
fan.
Why that is.
Probably because he grew up a
but
UNC
you go to
fan. Yeah, but you got to change your affiliation when you go there.
Yeah, that is that's strange. All right, listen and react. Tolos, your chance to react as well. You can do so by text. You can do so by phone, as well as on the stream. The chat's been blowing up in the first hour of the show. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch Wire to Wire on those three platforms. At the Fan Upstate, at the Cole Bryson on Twitter, on X. But Diesel, Shane Beamer spoke. Anytime you and I have something to say, we'll stop the audio. Here's Shane Beamer talking about the matchup this Saturday against a very good Alabama team who just lost to Vandy. Let's see what Shane Beamer, or hear rather, what Shane Beamer had to say.
All right, good to see everybody again. Hope you're having a good week. Eager, got a big opportunity, and eager to get back out on the field and compete this week as well. Going to one of the historic venues and all of college football, and Bryant-Denny Stadium and Saban Field. Coach Saban, who I have so much respect for all he meant to still means to the game of football and what he's done for college football, and then to be in a great environment like that in Tuscaloosa. I was thinking about it earlier, been over there a bunch as an assistant coach at Tennessee when I was a graduate assistant. We obviously played that rivalry game every year and got to go down there as a young coach. And then when I was at Mississippi State, obviously played them every year. And then I guess my last time in that stadium was when I was here as an assistant coach, and we went over there on a Saturday night a while back as well. So it'll be a big challenge, but really cool opportunity for our guys. I read or was told that they're honoring the 1974 championship team over there this weekend. That Sylvester Croom, who I worked for at Mississippi State and who gave me my first full-time coaching job in the SEC, he was a member of that team captain and All-American and All-SEC. So I believe he'll be there on Saturday. So it'll be great to see Coach Croom, who's meant so much to me in my life on and off the field, and just a great place with a lot of tradition and ton of respect for Coach DeBoer and what he's done in his career. Went and visited a lot of schools after, not a lot, but talked to a lot of coaches and went and visited some schools after last season. And Washington and him were going to be one of the places that I was absolutely going to go out and spend some time with, just because of the respect I have for him and what he's done in his career, no matter where he's been as a coach as well. And then he got the Bama job, unfortunately for me, and I don't think he was going to allow me to come to Tuscaloosa and spend a few days with him and pick his brain, maybe. But a ton of respect for the job that he does and the first-class person and coach he is. And he's a fantastic coach, has a great coaching staff offensively with what they're doing. And Coach Sheridan, their offensive coordinator, I know Coach DeBoer is heavily involved with that and very creative in what they do. They got really good players. Obviously starts with the quarterback defensively with Coach Womack and what he's doing. Obviously his dad was an assistant coach here, so he's very familiar with our program, and he did an awesome job as the head coach at South Alabama and is doing a really good job with their defense. And then they know what they're doing on special teams. They use good players. They're well coached. They have good schemes. So big challenge for us in all three phases, but I know our guys are eager to get over there and compete and get back out on the field. So questions?
Doesn't sound like he has a lot of faith.
And, he also didn't bring up, and I know it probably will be brought up in a second, and I think I heard David Cloninger asking the first question. Diesel, he didn't bring up this Bama team just lost to Vandy. That's kind of important.
That's
right?
smart.
Do you not bring that up? Do you just leave that out of the conversation?
At this point, don't South Carolina fans want Shane Beamer to be a little chippier, a little edgier? Be like, look, I know we're coming in as the underdogs, but this team just showed that they are beatable.
They do, like he does. However, the double-edged sword of that, Diesel, is he has to back it up. If you're gonna be that way,
well, he didn't say we're gonna beat them. He could just say they're beatable.
Whew, that'd make headlines. That'd make headlines for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what David Cloninger and let's see if there were some good, enticing questions. And I know our guy Jack Veltri, who we had on earlier this week, he's not scared to ask those tough questions. But were any tough questions actually asked?
Apples, but Vandy had a mobile quarterback that gave Alabama lots of trouble. We got a couple of mobile quarterbacks. Do you see something there that maybe y'all can exploit?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that Vandy put on tape that, frankly, we do in the run game as well. So there's certain things. Now, you also got to say to yourself, okay, Vandy had some success against them doing this. So is Alabama going to line up the exact same way and do the same thing? You don't know. But we're going to, be who we are and do what we do. But there's certainly, like any game, whether it be the Vanderbilt game or the Western Kentucky and South Florida games that they played this year, there's going to be things that we see on tape that we feel like have a chance to be successful that fit us that we'll implement. But certainly Vandy did a really good job of moving the ball. They did an awesome job of protecting the football. They did an awesome job of converting on third down. I think they were 12 of 18, David. So I'd like to copy that for sure, their ability to stay on the field and score points. But they had a really good plan. But I think the biggest thing is Vandy played really, really hard and really, really physical against them as well.
So that's a good question by David Cloninger of the Post and Courier, Diesel, talking about not only the loss to Vandy, but having some mobile quarterbacks. South Carolina has mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, he did say that there's a handful of things that Vandy did to find success that are similar to concepts they run.
Yep.
Obviously you want to study game film from what happened the previous week to find out if you could also exploit the same weaknesses, but there's nothing that says that this will be a weakness for Alabama again in the following week. Alabama obviously wants to shore up the weaknesses because they know that South Carolina will be studying that and wanting to exploit them as well. I did like what he said there, though, about, we run a lot of the same concepts. We do some of the same things that they do. That certainly should give Gamecock fans a little bit of hope and faith that maybe they're going to be able to find something to be successful this weekend. That's really interesting.
It certainly should give Gamecock fans hope. However, here's what I'll say to the Shane Beamer audio you just heard on the question from David Cloninger about Vandy and their mobile quarterbacks. To his point, to your point, yeah, Vandy had success doing it, but 99% of the times, really good teams won't let that same thing happen twice, right? And is Bama vulnerable enough, Diesel, to allow that exact same concept or those concepts rather to hurt them again? I don't think so. That's what scares me if I'm a Gamecock fan. Just as I said against Ole Miss, they came off a loss to Kentucky. They were going to be focused. They were. And I think South Carolina for the second week in a row is going to see a very focused Alabama team.
Well, it's that old adage, we're going to run it until they stop it. Maybe South Carolina is under the impression that Vandy exposed something that is a legitimate and not immediately fixable problem within Alabama's defense. You'd have to go back and rewatch that Vandy game to try to figure out what that is, and they pay a lot of people a lot of money to figure out what that is. And there's nothing to say that they're going to copy exactly what Vanderbilt did, but they'll take what they did, they'll take the concepts and sort of mold them around the personnel that they have and see, hey, can we find success against this team doing the exact same thing? Every coaching staff in America who loses a football game or gets exploited in a certain way on defense, they know that the team that they're about to play is going to try to do some of the same things.
Texter says,
can they stop it? Do they have the personnel to stop it? Alabama absolutely has the personnel. Do they have the scheme, though, to stop it?
Texter says, Shane, if you would prepare your team as hard as you studied Alabama's coach and the guy getting honored at the game, you might have a chance at winning this game. Oh, come on, Texter. That was his opening statement.
I meant to mention something about that. He seems to know an awful lot about what's going on in Alabama this weekend. Like an awful lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim Bob's over there. I'm good friends with him. Leroy, we used to go fishing together down at the pond behind the 7-Eleven. I used to go fishing with him. I kind of know what his personality's like. Oh, man, this guy over there, he gave me my first spot. I used to make out with his daughter under the bleachers. I mean, for God's sakes, Shane, you know everything about that team.
Well, come on. He had some close connections. All right, let's see.
John Dog says, don't run a fake punt in your own territory.
That's a good one, John Dog. I wouldn't recommend that, especially on the very first drive of the game.
It's one of those things. If it works, it's genius. If it doesn't work, you're
an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's an idiot. All right, more of Shane Beamer.
What are some of the details that you can share about Bengali and his decision to redshirt?
He came in my office yesterday and told me that he was redshirting. I told him that that's not quite how this works, that we can have a discussion about his role and his redshirting best. And we went back and forth a little bit. I think his situation's a little bit different than somebody. There's guys on our team right now, Hale, that we've had conversations with that, look, we're doing what we have to do in 2024 to win football games. But if we can save your redshirt year and not play you in 5 games, we will. Freshmen that have played some, older guys that have started that have played some this year that we've had those conversations with that maybe don't have the role on offense, defense that they want.
And by the way, he's talking about Bengali Kamara, the linebacker transfer from Pittsburgh.
He was a guy that played season high in snaps on Saturday at linebacker that was going to continue to play more for us moving forward. My job is to do what's best for the team. And what was best for the team in my mind is Gali continuing to play and help us go beat Alabama or try to beat Alabama this weekend. And he didn't quite feel the same way. So in the end, I made the decision for him that it's probably best to move on.
Ooh. With his departure, who's some of the guys that'll kind of fill in that spot? I guess Mo
Kaba, Fred Johnson. We've got a rotation there. If you watch, I know you watched this on Saturday, but Debo, Bam, D Knight, and Gali, those 4 guys all rotated through. So we're fortunate that we still have D Knight, Debo, and Bam, and then Mo Kaba has played a lot of football for us and is really doing a good job on special teams and defense for us. I love what he's about right now. And then Fred Johnson's a guy that is doing a great job on special teams and will continue to come along. So we're good at linebacker. I met with some of the leaders of our defense to make sure they were on the same page with my decision as far as to handle that, and they were 100% on board, and we're moving on, and wish him well and wherever his next stop is. I appreciate all he did for us. But
wow.
But
Shane, stop right there. Stop right there. Shane, you don't have to be so nice. This guy literally deserted your program. This guy just transferred into you, played a couple of games and said, Coach, this ain't what I thought it was going to be. I'm out.
That's so bad.
You don't have to be nice. Now look at this. It's starting to pick up steam. These guys defecting in the middle of a season.
Yeah.
Defecting in the middle of the season, which is exactly what Juice Wells did to this team last year.
Yep.
It just wasn't a precedent yet to say, hey, I'm going to redshirt. I'm going to shut it down for the year, and I'm going to go ahead and let you know that I'm entering the transfer portal. Now, Shane could certainly say, hey, our plan is to use you a lot more. We want to get you this, or I'm going to promise you that, or whatever. He could have done that. I'm proud of Shane for saying, you know what? We don't want you here anymore. If you don't want to be here, we don't want you here anymore. You're out. See you later. Stop by the registrar's office to cancel all of your classes.
I don't have any issue there with Shane Beamer. I 110% agree with the decision he made. Like you said, he's been here for a couple of months.
Cup of coffee.
He came from Pittsburgh. And if you're not committed to the program, unfortunately, and again, I don't want people to start with, this is a Gamecock culture problem. This happens at every school, okay? Maybe it doesn't happen at Clemson, but this is happening across the nation with transfer portal, with NIL. I'm not saying it had anything to do with NIL, but
– well, it's publicized now that it's happened twice at UNLV.
Yeah.
There was the guy at Southern Cal. There might have been one or two other ones since then that I specifically remember taking this tact right now. I'm going to redshirt, shut my season down. I'm done. Like, this is so bad for college football. It's like, when is college football going to get a win? When will it's just, God, it's terrible. I don't know that they will.
All right, we have time for one more question from whoever asked the next question.
Around here, we're trying to win in 24.
Shane, I know you were disappointed in the penalties from the Ole Miss game. How do you go about teaching that or emphasizing that? It seems
good question.
One thing you could teach technique in a certain way, but the awareness part of the game, is it you standing in front of everybody? Is it position coaches getting home? How do you get that message across?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. The ones that bother me, obviously, are the pre-snap and post-snap. Penalties, do we want to be the least penalized team in the SEC? Absolutely. Does that mean that if you're the least penalized team, you're going to win? No. I'm sure you guys are aware, because y'all do y'all's analysis and breakdowns and studies of our penalties. So I'm sure you guys are aware that last season, the three most penalized teams in the SEC had 31 wins between them. Two of them won 11 games. And the other one won 9 games. And they were the three most penalized teams in the SEC. And the least penalized team didn't go to a bowl game last season. So you're exactly right, and I'm exactly right. The penalties make me sick. The penalties are going to happen. It's the pre-snap penalties that make you want to throw up. And it's the post-snap penalties that we had on Saturday that we can't have. And the last one of those I remember that a player had, maybe I'm wrong, was at East Carolina, my second game as the head coach. Over on our sideline, we got a taunting penalty. So we've been good with the post-snap. It's the pre-snap where we got to be better. You understand that some penalties are going to happen. Some penalties get called that probably aren't good calls. But what we try and do is in practice emphasize technique, where when we're doing any kind of blocking drill, we're screaming and yelling, get our hands inside. Today, we've done this all along, but we did a whole lot of, as you can imagine, in practice today. So our defense doesn't jump. Not that we're all of a sudden starting that this week. We've been doing that as long as I've been the head coach here, but we clearly haven't done a good enough job of it. We show video of penalties. Here's why this is a penalty. Torian Gray.
So ultimately, Diesel, he's right when it comes to pre and post snap. Those are the ones that are kind of the backbreakers. Like, you can coach other penalties, and at the end of the day, he's right. They're going to happen, but the pre and the post are the ones that you can control the most, and those are the ones that South Carolina has to eliminate. So not a ton of issue on my part from the little bit of a little bit of audio we heard from Shane Beamer.
Texter says, Cole with them orange glasses.
What did I say that warrants me having orange glasses on, Texter?
Yeah.
I would love to know.
I mean, what we heard there from Shane was a fair amount of excuse making, or it was deflecting, not excuse making, excuse me, deflecting. Bringing up the stat, well, the 3 most penalized teams in the league last year combined for 31 wins.
Kind of sounded like Dabo when he said
What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? It's like it's spouting off statistics to try to change the trajectory of the conversation. So what, Shane? Like, you can apply statistics in a lot of different ways that sound interesting, sound factual, sound profound, but ultimately don't mean anything. That's because they had those 3 teams won a lot of football games because they were really good football teams. You don't have a really good football team and you're getting penalized a lot.
Yeah,
That's why you're losing more games than you should.
I don't love that that example that he gave. Again, ultimately, it's the stat. To your point, there are a lot of stats that you can dig up, but I do think that the pre and the post, or where South Carolina, they're hurting themselves, especially with what we saw last Saturday from Dylan Stewart.
What's the old saying? Stats are like bikinis. They reveal some things, but not all.
Yep, that's right.
Cole, when we come back, a very influential, often loved, often hated member of the Carolina Panthers playing history is back.
Oh, boy.
Where's he going? That's next on the Fan Upstate. Brett McMurphy tweeted 29 minutes ago, Utah quarterback Cam Rising will start this weekend against Arizona State. Really glad I didn't pick that game now.
Yeah, probably a smart move.
And there's a reason why this one was so lopsided. I guess they thought Cam Rising was not going to play. Well, it looks like he is. So sorry for all of you Tolos who took that game.
Do we have a lot of those?
We
Were there a
had,
good many?
let's see, Just Jess took that game.
Oh, wow.
And Hurst
So two.
took that game. Only two
As of
Tolos
now.
took that game. Hey, anything could happen. I'm just trying to help provide a little information, do the best that I can to help you out with that one. Cheesehead Corey gets in, and he's going Hail Mary at this point. He's going Hawaii against Boise State plus 20.5. A lot of cheddar on the table.
That's
this
a big number.
Not sure you're
there,
gonna get,
Corey.
Yeah, I'm just like we've got a lot of people now taking this Hail Mary approach.
You got
Cheesehead
to.
Corey is there. Diddy took South Carolina plus 21 against Alabama. Tron took Stanford plus 23 over Notre Dame. Jersey Joe is taking UAB plus 26 at Army. And that's just what we've seen in just today.
Yeah.
Brandon Gosnell took Stanford over Notre Dame. There's some big spreads that you Tolos are reaching for.
I did.
None bigger than I think this is the biggest one we've seen this week. And only one person has taken it. Tolo, Keith, and Fountain Inn is taking Mississippi State plus 33.5 against Georgia.
Hey, mine was 22.5. I mean, not far off.
Yeah, well, your team got their ass kicked.
Well, 2 weeks in a row they did.
Yeah.
Thanks, Purdue.
Guess who's back, Cole? Back again.
I don't want to.
Cam is back.
This.
Tell a friend.
I don't want to hear the answer.
Cam is back. Cam is back. Cam is back. Cam Newton is back.
Oh,
not as a Carolina Panther. Don't worry, Carolina Panther fans. Cam Newton is not back as a quarterback. 35-year-old Cam Newton, who's getting in fights with teenagers at local parks and kind of generally acting a fool. Cam Newton is going to be on TV.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
His podcast got him a TV deal.
I know you're a big fan of wake up first thing in the morning and have people scream at each other, television in sports. I'm not. I can't stand that kind of stuff. So this is not going to affect me.
Okay.
But those of you who wake up first thing and watch First Take, guess what? Cam Newton has signed a deal to join First Take. Who's even on First Take anymore?
Stephen A.
Who else?
Molly, of course.
Yeah, well, I know why you watch it. You watch it with the sound turned off.
What? They have sound? There's sound on First Take?
If there was, you know how like in live games when you tune in, especially on streaming, I don't know if it's the same on YouTube TV. When you tune into a big game, there's like 5 different ways to watch the game.
Yeah,
you can watch the especially in the national championship.
Thursday Night Football does that.
Yeah,
too.
you can watch the Sky Cam. You can watch the national play-by-play guys.
Manning Cast.
The Manning Cast. You can watch the home team, like the 2 different Homer broadcasts. If there was a Molly Cam, you'd watch just the Molly Cam.
100%. 100%. They're not going to hide that. But to answer your question, Shannon Sharp's on there now. They rotate guys, which I do like rotation. Like Wednesdays, Mad Dog Russo, who I freaking love, is on there every Wednesday. Michael Irvin used to be before Michael Irvin, had some allegations.
It should make Stephen A. a better, even better as a debater, because he's now having to debate different people, different types of tactics.
They bring in a lot of guys from ESPN, like the NFL Live crew, the crew from Get Up. I really do enjoy it. Again, I like Stephen A. and I like what they're doing right now, except for this. I'm not a big Cam fan.
Well, you're going to see it tomorrow morning, so you're not even going to get time to think about it, let the idea wash all over you. Yeah, he starts tomorrow. Oh. He'll be on as part of the show's HBCU Roadshow at Tennessee State University, a place obviously Cam Newton would never step foot on campus unless he was getting paid to be there. But yeah, Cam, he's had his 4th and 1 show with Cam Newton, his podcast, and I've never listened to it. I don't know if he's any good at hosting the show. I know Cam Newton always liked to cry and complain. We've seen clips, right? I've never actually watched the show, but I've seen clips. Cam Newton always complaining that somebody's not giving him his respect, not showing him his love, whatever. Cam, just cool it, would you?
So I'm not a Cam fan. I wasn't a fan of his of him when he was a player. So, I don't love this. I do like First Take, which means I'll probably watch a little less on Fridays, which is okay. Friday is usually a busy day anyway, so I might not have time. But his podcast, Diesel, you're right. Same thing here. I don't watch it. I do see clips of it on social media. But look, he's a big personality.
Mm-hmm.
He wears hats that are bigger than his personality.
Bigger than his brain.
He's
honestly.
a flamboyant kind of guy, right?
Made for TV.
Made for reality TV. Let's put reality in front of it. He needs to go to a reality TV show where they have to jump on footballs and see if he can actually do it. However, Cam Newton is going to get viewers. I mean, maybe I don't like it, but guess what? He's going to get viewers. People are going to watch.
Here was Cam's quote. He said, quote, "I've always brought passion and energy into everything I do, and that won't change at ESPN. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to share my perspective and go toe-to-toe with the best in the business. Fans can expect the same intensity I brought to the field, unless there's a fumble on the goal line in the Super Bowl, in which case there's no intensity, along with real talk, bold takes, and good fun." He did not type all of this out in Wingdings, which is the font that he uses on his social media platform.
Well, I'm glad he didn't because I wouldn't be able to read it.
When he tweets, I don't
so
understand
bad.
what that. I unfollowed him for that reason. I don't want to try to decipher what it is you're trying to say, Cam. It's not cool.
Yeah, let me
It's
put it
not
into
funny.
a translator, right?
Yeah.
Put it into a translator.
Stupid.
Texter says Molly is so fine.
Yeah.
Molly who? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, yeah, of course. Everybody knows that. It's interesting because that show and the way it's set up, Diesel, with it being a debate show, they don't bring people on the show that are the best X's and O's guys. They don't bring the people on the show that are that have the specialties that they have studied for a long, long time. They bring people on the show who are going to be able to push back on Stephen A. and create very good debate. That's what the ratings get, right? Nobody watches that show because of their X's and O's breakdown. I want to see Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp going at it about something. And Cam Newton, for all he's worth, I'm telling you this, I may not like the guy, but I might have to eat crow in a major way. He could be very good. I'm gonna hold out hope.
I'll watch an episode, see how he does. Yeah, I want to see his debate skills.
Yep.
Like I said, I've never watched his podcast, but little clips here and there, and that's been a while. So I'm sure he's gotten better. And here's the thing, Cole, you have these huge personalities, and I know Cam he's been doing this podcast for a while. He's been coached up by the best of the best in the business at how to be entertaining and relevant on television. And they're telling him, they're in his ear, I'm sure, telling him, do not back down. Well, say what you're going to say, have a strong opinion, defend it tooth and nail, because Stephen A. is going to come at you like a spider monkey.
He's good at it. I mean, whether you like him or not, Stephen A., one of the highest paid, I believe, ESPN employee. Here's what I hope doesn't happen. And I hate this. This is a bugaboo of mine. I don't care if it's sports radio like you and I are doing, and it's another show in another market, or it's the biggest show in the world. The worst debaters, in my opinion, are the ones who get emotional. I can't stand the emotional, the ones who get super offended and take things personal, right? If you and I are having a good debate, you and I both know that, guess what? We're going to debate. We're going to go at it. We're going to banter. But that's what we're here for. We're not here to agree on everything. I just hope and pray Cam doesn't, because Cam has in the past. He has
got emotional.
Yep, just kind of a little. I'm not saying you have to go personal and make things personal with the person you're debating, because I don't think that's fair. But I just hope he understands that it's all about creating the ratings for that show. It's like, I think, the highest rated show on the ESPN.
Who was it that went after Stephen A. Smith's quote unquote playing career? It was like a year ago. Somebody went after him saying like, hey, you got cut from a JV team in wherever BFE. You got no business talking about basketball.
It was, I do recall that. I can't think of who it was off the top of my head. Wesley says, can they trade Cam for Kendrick Perkins? Are you not a fan of Kendrick Perkins, Wesley, or are you? And JD says Cam will have a towel over his head on episode 1. It's good, JD. It's
Cole,
good.
Who is your favorite, like, good at it, former players who became play-by-play guys? I've got a couple. I've got a few that I think are great at play-by-play. One or two that are so-so at play-by-play, and a few that I think are terrible.
So just play-by-play or TV in general?
Just TV in general, yeah. Being on TV, being around sports, color commentary, things like that.
See, I like Kendrick Perkins a lot. Wesley says he can't stand him. I'm a big basketball guy. I'm a big NBA fan. I really do like Kendrick
But
Perkins.
Kendrick Perkins gets emotional all the time.
Well,
You
I
just said
think
you
it's
hated that.
no. I think it's more of Kendrick Perkins. I don't think it's emotion like where he's offended. I think it's emotion where he truly understands what debate style they're looking for.
You think he's trying to overpower?
Maybe
I
so.
don't
Maybe
like
so.
somebody who tries to yell over and overpower and shut the person down that they're trying to talk to.
That's a good question, though. Oh, God, that's a good question.
I mean, the greats obviously are like Howie Long. He's good at it. Most people forget Chris Collinsworth was a player. He played
God.
a couple seasons as a wide receiver for the Bengals. You're done with Collinsworth?
Can't
No,
stand
I
him.
like Collinsworth. Troy Aikman
he's
is
gonna-
great.
Mahomes. Yeah,
Tony
it's-
Romo is great. Those are the ones that I look at, especially now that are still active, that I say are really, really good at it.
Romo's really good. Derek Jeter's really good on the baseball side. Basketball-wise,
I
man.
think Chipper's so-so.
Yeah,
as
on
a
the
play-by-play.
Braves stuff.
He's not. I mean, I don't hate him. If I had to put him in like an in-between category, he's in between so-so and great. He's good.
JD on the YouTube stream says Greg Olson. Greg Olson's fantastic. Fantastic. And I'll tell you this, Greg Olson right now is better than the guy that replaced him, Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like,
Tom,
let's
Tom
just
is
call
so-so at this point.
Tom might be better than Greg one day. But let's call a spade here.
Was Greg Olson elite? And JD really likes Greg Olson, and I agree.
I do
Greg's
too.
really good at
Yeah.
this. Was he that good of it out of the gate, or did it take him a little time to get there? So are you comparing somebody who had a couple of years under his belt at this with somebody who's got like a couple of games under his
Well,
belt?
it may be fair. Maybe I need to give Brady a year or two before I compare the two, because he had, to your point, Greg Olson has had more time, but I just think that him and Kevin Burkhardt, they were better than Kevin and Tom. I mean, they really were. Tom's going to be better.
On my terrible list, Cole, I'm going Eli. Eli is god-awful on the Manning.
See, I don't like either one of them.
He's awful. Peyton is okay. The two play off each other well because they're brothers, right? They've literally known each other their entire lives.
Yeah.
But I think Eli sucks.
See, I don't watch
bad.
the Manning cast. I'm not a Manning cast fan. The guests are funny. The guests they bring on, right? I like that aspect of it. But Peyton and Eli,
Well, the hosts should be able to carry the show themselves. They bring on these guests because the hosts are kind of dull.
Well, I want to watch. When I tune into Monday Night Football, it doesn't help that Joe and Troy are now with ESPN. I want to hear good commentary. So if you're asking me to watch Joe and Troy or the two brothers who goof off, I'm watching Joe and Troy all day long. Yeah, of course, I'm a Troy Aikman fan, being a Cowboy, but to me, it doesn't compare. All right, we'll get you updated on what's going on in the world of sports. Daily Wires next. We've got to get you caught up on what's happening in the sports world. We call them Daily Wires.
Bzzz.
It's the Daily Buzz. What's going on in the world of sports? Yesterday in the MLB postseason, the Tigers defeated the Guardians 3-0. The Mets defeated the Phillies 4-1. And the Yankees defeated the Royals 3-2. One more, the Dodgers all over the Padres last night, 8-0.
That saves their playoff lives right there.
Yes, it does. I needed that one bad. And I remember Diesel yesterday on the show. I said, look, at some point, LA has to have an offensive outburst. They haven't done that in the postseason. I guess Dave Roberts was listening. They had that offensive outburst last night. Credit to them. Tonight in the MLB, the Guardians at the Tigers, 6 p.m., Yankees at Royals, 8 p.m. Also tonight, what we'll be watching, college football, NFL, San Francisco at Seattle. 49ers are 2-3 on the season. Seahawks are 3-2. Early lean right now. San Francisco or Seattle, Diesel?
Is there some major injury going on in San Francisco we don't know about? Because this 49ers team should be stacked. Again, the way they were stacked last year, should be poised to make another deep run. The core is still there. Debo's still there. Brock Purdy's still there. I think the 49ers start to kind of round this thing into form.
Okay.
They get back to 500 at this point, and they start pulling away, getting into the good side of that plus column. So I'm going 49ers here.
I like Geno Smith. I really do. I'm telling you, I think the 49ers may win, but I think the Seahawks cover. Also breaking news, texter from the 508 says, Braves just fired the hitting coach, assistant hitting coach, and catching coach, but no Snitker yet. That comes from Tyler B. Well, Tyler B., appreciate you letting us know of that.
They're taking the South Carolina Gamecocks approach to coaching.
It sounds like
leave the head coach, fire everyone else.
Well, that's what it sounds like. Hey, Snit, we got to have some changes. So the Braves making some moves. I like it. Let's go ahead and fire Snitker while we're at it. Diesel, last night, the roof at Tropicana Field, the home of the Tampa Bay Rays, it's gone. I saw a video.
Shredded.
It is bad. So it sustained major damage because of the high winds from Hurricane Milton, which made landfall yesterday, and it was a Category 3. I know they're in the clear now, but they took a lot of damage.
I believe I saw, Cole, that it was a staging area for a lot of emergency workers. But to my knowledge, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong on this, this was before the hurricane came through. It was a staging area before the hurricane came through, and those personnel were out of the building by the time it finally did come through. Is that correct, or were they supposed to have been in there during the hurricane?
Well, I didn't see anything in there while the roof was being pulled off. So you could be right. Diesel, Jerry Jones was asked this morning on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas about one of his players' injuries. Maybe the best audio, 30 seconds of audio you'll hear maybe ever. Here's, again, this is Sean and RJ of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas.
Jerry, I got one more injury question, if I may. These guys have really dropped the ball on it, if you know what I mean. But Tyler Smith was talking about Tolbert, and he said, I'm going to read you the quote here, he sprained his nuts. How do you sprain your nuts?
Well, again, I'm not going to really go into all of the ways. We don't have time. You can do it stepping off a curb.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or you can do it at midnight.
That is Jerry Jones, classic Jerry Jones.
He's a funny guy.
He is.
Funny guy.
He is. Sprained his nuts, apparently. Apparently that can happen. I didn't know it could, but apparently it can. Continuing in the Daily Wires, Furman head football coach Clay Hendrix will join Diesel and I today at 6 p.m. A huge win, Diesel.
Coming off a win, yeah.
This is a big week for Furman. Also, on his second full day on the job, New York Jets interim coach Jeff Ulbrich made a major shakeup, stripping the play calling duties from Nathaniel Hackett.
I saw a tweet earlier today that said Robert Saleh was considering firing Nathaniel Hackett before he himself was fired,
which
Aaron Rodgers had nothing to do with.
Well, Hackett and Rodgers are boys.
Right.
So if that happened, maybe Rodgers went up the ladder and said, no, that can't happen. it's a bad situation.
But remember, Aaron Rodgers patently denied that he had anything to do with it.
Yeah, of course. Of course he didn't, right? Why would he have anything to do with it? Continuing in the Daily Wires, let's see, Oklahoma. This is huge this weekend. Oklahoma leading wide receiver Deion Burks, Diesel, is not expected to play against number 1 Texas due to a soft tissue injury. Sources told ESPN's Pete Thamel on Thursday. That's a big blow to those Tolos taking Oklahoma in their upset picks challenge. After 15 NBA seasons, Danny Green says he is retiring from basketball. One of the few players to win a championship with 3 different teams, to my knowledge there. Let's see. Also, former Gamecock Debo Samuel, Diesel, this one's awesome. Former Gamecock donated $20,000 to Hurricane Helene recovery. Obviously, Debo went to Chapman High School in Edmond, South Carolina, so really cool to see him do that. Always love local players giving back. And Debo's certainly doing that. You got one more?
Yeah, Cole. Do you have some money I can borrow, because the Minnesota Twins are for sale?
Oh, how much do you need, DJ?
It doesn't say here, but Twins chairman Joe Poland said in a statement that the family had made the decision earlier this season to go ahead and sell the team, and that it was the right time to tell the world, if you want to buy a piece of this, can I just borrow a couple $1 million?
Wow.
Maybe you and I could go in it. Again, the valuation is not yet made public, but I guarantee you it's going to be a ton of money.
Now, ask somebody else other than me. Sorry.
JD, can I borrow some cash?
There you go.
Hey, big man, can I hold $1? It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryce. And when we come back, it's time to do a welfare check on a handful of coaches around college football. How hot do we feel like their seats are right now? That's coming up next on 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and everywhere you are on the free Odyssey app. Cole, when was the last time you called your mama just to check in, see how she's doing?
It's been, I guess,
Days.
too long.
Days.
Too long.
Potentially. I haven't called my parents in like a week. Ew, it's bad. And once I found out their power was back on after Hurricane Helene, I was like, they're good to go. I don't need to call them up every single day. My wife, on the other hand, every single day, she's on a video call with her parents. But hey, sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you got to do what we call welfare checks here on the Fan Upstate. You gotta call up the people and say, hey, how's it going down in your neck of the woods? So we, every week, Cole, we put together a list of 5, 6, 7 coaches that we think are kind of right there on that hot seat. Fans are getting nervous. Fans are getting antsy. And we just ask the question, how you feeling right now? How you doing? Is there a good chance you're going to get fired this week?
Oh, this week. I'd love to see it.
So,
and by the way, Robert Saleh, we can't put him on there.
Yeah, Robert
He's gone.
Saleh's gone. Yeah, answer that question for us. We appreciate the ownership of the Jets for taking that one off the board for us. But Cole, we go to some familiar haunts, to Billy Napier at Florida. How you feeling about Billy Napier and his hot seat potential at Florida?
So you beat UCF.
Yeah.
24-13.
You can't lose that game. You lose that game,
No,
you
I
are
agree
in
with you.
bad shape.
And to add to that, Diesel, they won 2 in a row. They beat Mississippi State. And to add to that, hey, let's stop the press here. Breaking news. Florida hasn't lost a football game since the 14th of September.
Ooh.
Because they had a bye, right? They had a bye built into that Mississippi State UCF stretch. So things, while they may be trending, I don't want to say up because that might be a stretch, up a centimeter maybe. I will say that a little bit of the heat's off. I mean, we all know that when you lost to Miami as bad as you did, and then you lost to A&M, the heat was on. You were at a 5 out of 10. However, right now, for Billy Napier, Florida, you have Tennessee coming up this week, so that's going to be tough, and the schedule is going to continue to get tougher with Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. Not tough. But right now, hot seat-wise, Diesel. I think Billy Napier is at a 4.5.
4.5. I think
4.5.
Where do we think, without going back and checking notes, I think we've looked at Billy Napier as sitting around at a 7.
6.5, 7.
6.5, 7, yeah. Especially after that Texas A&M game, getting beat 33-20, getting punked there, getting blown out by Miami. Man, they were ready to fire his ass, run him out of town, tar and feather him right then and there. Certainly has cooled off a little bit since then, but Cole, it's about to get a lot worse. He's sitting right now at a sub 5 in my book for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
But you said it. On the road at Tennessee, Kentucky at home, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. They very well, Cole, could be looking at a 6-game losing streak.
And they might.
And I don't think there's any chance Billy Napier sees the end of that 6-game losing streak.
Well, that's why I have him at 4.5 now, because it can't be like 7.5 now, because you have to go up. It's going to get hotter, but I think that 4.5 will quickly, Diesel, get to 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, and like you said, by the end of the season, it will be a 10.
Okay, Cole, let's go to Cincinnati and go to Scott Satterfield.
Oh, man.
That's a dude who had App State rolling, went to Louisville, couldn't get it going at Louisville, took the job at Cincinnati. Took the job at Cincinnati. Where do we think Scott Satterfield is right now with the Bearcats?
I don't think anybody. First of all, I don't think anybody likes Scott Satterfield.
He's not really like he's a nice guy. He's not somebody who's going to make people feel warm and fuzzy.
Right. So, man, let's see. Who do they have this week? They have
UCF.
UCF. Ooh.
They just took a 44-41 loss on the road at Texas Tech.
Right. So they're now
3-2. Yeah.
Lost to Pitt.
Yeah.
Pitt's not a bad team. They beat a bad Houston team. They're going to play 2 ranked opponents in the last 3 weeks of the season: Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU. I don't know that's – this is a tough one. I don't know that it's extremely hot, and you may disagree here. I'll go 4. I'll go 4. You hate that?
Go 4. I think the fan base at Cincinnati, considering where they were, considering they had everything rolling in the right direction for them when their coach left them and Scott Satterfield took the job, I think Scott Satterfield's probably sitting at like a 5.5 right now.
5.5?
5.5.
In the Big 12.
You know, you make the move up. Things are certainly tougher on you, but fans don't think about that kind of stuff.
You know
right?
what's interesting? We asked the question yesterday when you talk about Scott Satterfield. I think I asked you on the 5 o'clock fight yesterday, Diesel, if Mike Norvell was the hottest or on the hottest seat in the ACC. Is Scott Satterfield on the hottest seat in the Big 12?
Satterfield went 3-9 in 2023, and he's sitting at 3-2 right now. So he's only in his second season.
Yeah. So I would say
Cincinnati.
I'll answer my own question and say no. I think Lance Leipold is probably on a hotter seat, right? When you look at the Big 12, Sonny Dykes, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Sonny Dykes is in a tough spot, man. TCU expects to win. Let's go to Brent Pry at Virginia Tech. Hot seat for you.
This one's also tough. Look, Virginia Tech, they don't have the expectations that some schools in the ACC do.
They should, though.
Should they?
They've got a huge fan base that's loyal, that's there every single week. They've got Enter Sandman, one of the great traditions in college football, and they've just fallen flat since joining the ACC. It might be one of the worst things they ever did. Now, obviously, it's a jump up in competition, but that's a program that should have been poised and ready to make that jump.
They're 3-3.
Yep.
They've lost 2 in a row, or they did lose 2 in a row to Rutgers and Miami. They beat Stanford. Stanford's not good. They play Boston College. They're off this week, so they play Boston College Diesel next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Boston College might beat them in Blacksburg. Boston College is a well-coached team. Then they have Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Clemson, Duke, and Virginia. I will say by the end of the season, if they don't drastically improve, I think Brent Pry could creep up to a 7.
I think he's only like a 3.
I was going to say 3.
Yeah, because your 3 losses were all one possession games.
Yeah.
You lost by 4. You should have beaten Miami. Crazy situation there at the end, which I didn't get to watch because that was the week the hurricane came through.
Correct.
You lost by 3 versus Rutgers. Rutgers is really good this year. That's not a bad loss this year. And then you lost by a touchdown at Vanderbilt to start the season. A game that I listened to on the way back from Atlanta after wrecking a company vehicle. I mean, just being honest.
Well, I'm glad you're honest about it.
And Vanderbilt now, in retrospect, is not a bad loss.
Yeah. I do think it's fascinating with him. Again, let's see what the end of the season says. Texter says Dave Doran needs to be Pac fan Shuff.
Guess what, Pac fan Shuff? Dave Doran is on the list to talk about.
Get to him.
Yeah, we are going to get to. Let's go ahead and right there.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go straight to Dave Doran at NC State.
Okay.
Dave Doran at NC State has had NC State in a position, Cole, where they should take a next step and be dominant.
Yep.
And every time he's had the opportunity to take that next step forward, it seems like they fall flat. Like always the bridesmaid, never the bride for NC State.
I'll tell you this. I know Clemson fans don't like Dave Doran because a lot of stuff that's going on. I like Dave Doran. I really do. I think he's a good football coach. I do, man.
I think he's a prickly, ornery guy, and I don't like him.
Well, maybe he is, but I think he's a good prickly football coach, right?
He's got a good record. He's 107-65.
Yeah, I say I may shock you here. I say 2.
2. Oh, that's not going to make Pac fan Shuff very happy.
Pac fan Shuff. I'm sorry. Am I off here, Pac? And seriously, I mean, what do you think, Pac fan Shuff? I'm assuming Pac fan Shuff. Big Tolo, we've taken a big step backwards, even with injuries, says Pac fan Shuff. Where do you think he is on a scale of 1 to 10, Pac fan Shuff? I say 2.
I think Dave Doran is more like a 6. With that fan base is ready to win. They're ready to get somebody. I mean, God, if NC State could hire Jamie Chadwell tomorrow, they would, and they should.
Be interesting.
They should. We talked about Jamie Chadwell yesterday as being a guy who's prime for a big-time position, and you may if Jamie Chadwell, I think, will eventually and has the personality to be an SEC head coach, if he really does have to take a stepping stone at a program that's not quite SEC, prove that he can do it at the Power 5 level, I think NC State would be a really good position for him. Come on, man. That's a chippy, edgy fan base. I think he's at about a 6.
Oh,
Dave Doran about
we're way up. We disagree big time.
He hasn't won back-to-back games all season. Looked bad against Western Carolina, and certainly Grayson McCall going down hurt them. But got embarrassed by Tennessee, got embarrassed by Clemson, got beat by Wake Forest down the street. Like, he's embarrassed this program 3 times this year, Cole. 3 times. And it's like, NC State, at what point are you going to pull the trigger and get rid of this guy?
I don't know, man. I just – let's see. It's by the way, Pac-Fan Shuff did chime in. He says at least 6 or 7. Let me make sure that is Pac-Fan. Yes, it was. He says he's a good guy. I agree with Diesel, at least 6 or 7. We should be better. I don't know that you should. I mean, it's NC State. It's not, come on. You got a better basketball team than you do football.
The problem with NC State, which has always been the problem with NC State, is they don't really know where they want to commit their emotional resources. Do you want to be a basketball school? Do you want to be a football school? Do you want to be a baseball school?
They're a basketball school.
You're kind of in the middle. You're spreading your fandom around 33% into each bucket, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not quite there.
I'll tell you this. Dave Doran will be interesting to watch. Let's see. I'm 2 now, but I may be more with you on 6 at the end of the season.
Wesley Roberts says, Diesel, you don't get to dog Liberty and then say this about Chadwell. Why not, Wesley Roberts? I've been saying this for like 3 days about Jamie Chadwell and Liberty. I dislike Liberty, the way that they handle things, the way that they get tax-exempt status, the way that they conduct themselves with the processes of the university. But I can still think Chadwell is a good coach. I just know that he bends the rules every now and again. And at NC State, you need that, by God. You need
have
somebody,
a cheater.
Well, a little bit, maybe.
Yeah,
you got to have somebody who's willing to color outside the line.
They're Connor Stallions.
Well, let's see. Next up, Cole. JD brought this up. Thank you, JD. He was already on the list. Mac Brown at North Carolina. 89-million-year-old Mac Brown. 10.
As you can see.
Flirted with walking away.
10. He's a 10. He's got to go.
Oh.
Like, I don't even believe that Mac Brown's currently the head coach. I'm serious. I don't believe it. I think Mac Brown is a 10 out of 10 right now.
They're 3-3, Cole. They're not awful.
They've lost 3 in a row, though. They're the town. They're not
James Madison, Duke, and Pitt.
Who's that? That's who they lost to?
That's who they lost to the last 3 games.
And they're probably going to lose to Georgia Tech. Yeah. Probably going to lose to Boston College. They'll probably lose to NC State and Dave Doran. They might not have 5 wins. They may be bowl eligible.
If they don't make a bowl, Mac's done this year.
Oh, 100%. God, yeah. I think
100%.
I think he's already done. I think Diesel, I believe that when the season's over, he may take a few days, kind of like Nick Saban did last year, right, to evaluate where he wants to be. I don't believe Mac Brown wants to be in college football right now.
Does anybody believe? I don't know if we have any Tar Heel fans who are listening. We have UNC Chris, who texts in occasionally. I don't know if you're listening at the moment, UNC Chris. I don't think there's a coach in waiting on that staff. And I think no. See, I think back to the conversation from NC State. I think Jamie Chadwell is perfect for NC State. He is 100% diametrically the wrong guy for North Carolina.
I think Kevin from Inman, who called in yesterday, is a Tar Heel.
Is he?
I think so. I don't want to misspeak there, Kevin. If I'm wrong, tell me. But I think he is. I don't know. I do think that Mac Brown, was WAS, not is a good coach. Again, I just think he's kind of tired. Diesel, he's fatigued, right, when it comes to college football.
I think he'd make a great athletic director, just not as a head coach anymore.
My God, he should be rich by now.
Yeah.
He should have plenty of money. But I say 10.
Cole,
what do you say on Mac, by the way?
Mac, I'm going to put Mac at a solid 7.
Okay.
Solid 7, 7.5. I mean, it just feels like this thing is going downhill.
Yeah, it does.
Fast and hard.
Yeah.
For Mac Brown in North Carolina. Dennis Allen, New Orleans Saints, head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Dennis Allen. They started hot. and they have cooled off in a big, big way.
This is an interesting one that you brought to the table. I love Dennis Allen, by the way. I think Dennis Allen's I think he's a good coach. They're in an interesting spot now. Obviously, Derek Carr is banged up. Starting Spencer Rattler. I don't think there's any real pressure on Dennis Allen. I really don't. I will, though, for the sake of the question, I'll go 2. I'll go 2.
2.
And maybe Saints fans disagree. Maybe Rob Brown disagrees.
Dennis was 8-28 at Oakland. Really hard position to be put in, right? 4-12, 4-12, 0-4 when he was removed in 2014. Gets the job in New Orleans. 7-10, 9-8, 2-3 through 5 this year. So he has had exactly one winning season his entire career as a head coach.
Okay.
And he's had 5.5 seasons. 26-49 overall. Saints fans ought to be livid. I mean, they still remember the Sean Payton days when things were good in New Orleans.
You convinced me. A good argument, by the way. You convinced me to double my total. I'll put him at a 4.
Put him at a 4.
I'll put him at a 4.
Yeah. I think 4 is good. I might go 5, just because the fuse is shortening for a lot of fans on how much losing they're willing to accept, and so I think this franchise wants to win. They've got pieces, and if Dennis Allen continues to squander those pieces away, Cole, while they're still in their prime, I'm going to put him at a 5.
Yeah.
All right, Doug Peterson, head coach of the Jaguars.
God. So here's the problem with Doug Peterson. When he got hired, I love the hire. Quarterback-minded guy, went to a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, knows how to win. However, the past few years hasn't helped. The ownership, I don't think, is great in Jacksonville. They just don't have the best players. If we're going to call it like it is, they don't have good football players to win the division, to go to the playoffs. They've got to have better guys, especially at receiver, especially at offensive line. Trevor's got to be better. This was a very interesting with Doug Peterson. I'll go 4.5. But I think that 4.5 could quickly change throughout the course of the NFL season if they don't get better. I think they've won 1 game so far.
Where do you place the blame on all of this? I mean, Trevor Lawrence has not panned out to be what we thought he was going to be, or at least to this point has not panned out to be that guy. Doug Peterson, 2 seasons where he went 9-8. I think a lot of this is still going to fall on Doug Peterson's head more than it's going to fall on Trevor Lawrence. I'll give him a 4.
Well, it should be on the ownership. It should be on the general manager.
Because people have been saying for years that Shad Khan is right there from moving this team.
And look, does he care about football? I don't know. But they don't have the dudes. They've got to go get the dudes.
Last up, Cole.
I added one.
Shane Beamer.
Oh,
Shane-o.
Why were we having the conversation
Beamer
about
ball
Shane
to the
Beamer?
unemployment line?
Not a good win. Or not a good loss last week, rather. Not a good look for Shane Beamer. I thought it was one of his worst games in South Carolina. I really did. Against Ole Miss, they didn't look prepared. They did not look motivated. And to make matters worse, he did a terrible job coaching last week. He called a fake punt, early in the game in his own territory. I don't think that affects the hot seat conversation a ton, even though I think it was a bad day for Shane Beamer Saturday. I have him at a 1.
1? No.
1.
No, there's no way.
1.
No, 3. Gotta be a 3. I mean, fans are fickle, right? Fans swing back and forth like a pendulum. And I think fans right now are really upset. Really upset with Shane Beamer. And what swings?
The fans.
Oh, okay.
Fans.
Okay. I thought we were still talking about spraining things.
No.
No, I think fans ought to be at a 3 right now. And if you're at a 1, oh man, like how do you accept being embarrassed the way that they were against Ole Miss, looking completely unprepared on coming off a bye week, terrible decision making from players on his team, horrible pre-snap penalties, not looking remotely ready to play. That's all on Shane Beamer, and eventually you got to hold him accountable.
You do. I know you have to hold him accountable. Diesel, coming up next, we will talk to Shelly Henderson. Who is Shelly? Well, I'm glad you asked. Shelly is the Divisional Director of Public Relations for the Salvation Army. As you can imagine, everything going on with Hurricane Helene right now and still getting recovery efforts ongoing. We're going to talk to Shelly in the very next segment. It's going to be a great interview, a great conversation, and she'll give you some ways you can help as well for those who are continuing to hurt. We'll talk to Shelly Henderson, next. is Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. We go to the phones. As you know, in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, we've been talking a lot about Hurricane Helene and the impact it had on the Carolinas, especially Western North Carolina. And we want to talk to Shelly Henderson, who is the Divisional Director of Public Relations for the Salvation Army. Shelly, so much appreciate you joining us today, and I want to talk about rebuilding Carolinas. For those that don't know, can you give our listeners out there an idea of what you guys have going on?
Absolutely, Cole, and thanks for having us on. We'd love to share the story of all the good that's happening after the devastation from Helene. The Salvation Army's goal after a disaster impacts communities is to meet the immediate needs of people in the community: food, water, and a listening ear. That's the immediate need. And then we work in communities as they begin to rebuild. Right now, we're feeding people. We fed more than 66,000 hot meals since Helene. And, you ask yourself, well, why is that so important? No power means people can't cook their food. And in many cases, their food has spoiled, so they need a hot meal, nourishing food, so they can keep moving forward. Interestingly enough, in Western North Carolina, there's a lot of, in Asheville area especially, water is out in the community. So we are providing fresh water to people. A bottle of cool water makes a really big difference directly after a storm. Interestingly enough, another big commodity in the days after the storm passed was ice. People were looking for ice so they could keep their what food they could rescue or get out of their refrigerator cool so they could use it, and also a cold drink.
We got Shelly Henderson, Salvation Army Divisional Director of Public Relations, joining us here on the phone, wire to wire, with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Shelly, what areas here specifically in the upstate of South Carolina are you still, spending the most time and effort working on? I know that North Carolina, I think, took more of the brunt of this storm than what we did here in the upstate, but that doesn't mean that areas still here aren't in need. What areas and towns are you guys working the closest with here?
In Aiken, South Carolina, Aiken was just hit especially hard by Helene, and our Salvation Army in Aiken began feeding almost immediately. They just ramped down yesterday. Power is mostly on in Aiken, so they ramped their service down yesterday, but served over 20,000 meals in a week and a half period. People can still get meals in Aiken through the Salvation Army Soup Kitchen. But that service has ramped down. In Greenville, the Salvation Army is working with the emergency managers on serving neighborhoods and communities and shut-ins who need a meal. So we're still serving, but fortunately, the power is being restored in South Carolina, and our Salvation Army locations will just continue to work with people as they rebuild their lives.
Shelly, we know that you're the Divisional Director of Public Relations, and you and your team have been doing this for a while, I am sure of. So when you see what Helene did, where does that rank? Where does that compare? Or how does it compare, rather, to storms you guys have seen? And not only the storms, but the challenges that the storm presented after the fact.
Helene was especially challenging. There are still communities and neighborhoods in Western North Carolina that are inaccessible. So slowly we are able to get further and further out into the more rural counties. Today in Western North Carolina, we have 17 units out feeding people, and also emotional and spiritual care chaplains who are providing support and care there. Just the other day, 10 days after the storm, a woman was finally able to come down off the mountaintop. She lived there with her 2 boys and was trapped. She was worried that people had forgotten she was up there. It's in a very rural part of northeast of Asheville. She heard big trucks rumble by her house and was able to come down, and the first vehicle, the first people she saw was the Salvation Army mobile feeding unit, who was able to help provide her the resources and get her to the people who could really help them the most.
Shelly, I'm sure you guys will take donations however you can get them in whatever form that is, whether it's cases of water, food in boxes, et cetera, et cetera. But when financial donations come in, how does that money get spent? There's a lot of people who are wary just in general about how donations they give to a lot of different causes get spent. Does the Salvation Army have vendors and partners where you can get items like at a cheaper bulk price than what somebody, if I went and spent $5 on a case of waters versus you guys and the incredible partners that you have, can that dollar get stretched farther if it's donated in that way?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, 100% of every donation goes directly to disaster relief. There is not any kind of administration fee on it. It is, if you give a dollar goes directly to that disaster. But yes, we have partnerships with vendors. We buy in bulk quantity. I mean, imagine feeding 66,000 meals, how much product has to be purchased for that. So we can buy from vendors in quantity. But the other thing about it is, when people donate cash, we try to spend that money in that community so we can help bolster the economy there. If there is a large disaster in an area, we know that the economy has taken a hit. So we really try to focus on local and how we can help bolster the local economy.
We're talking to Shelly Henderson. She's the Divisional Director of Public Relations for the Salvation Army. How can those out there listening who maybe have just got back on their feet themselves, Shelly, and said, look, you know what, it's been a few weeks now and I'm getting back on my feet. I'd love if there's still a way to do so. I'd love to help out and get involved. How can they do that?
Well, financial donations are best. Right now, so many people, so many generous people are trying to find ways that they can help, and they're bringing water or blankets to areas. And quite frankly, a lot of places that are taking those physical donations are running out of room. Financial donations help any relief organization purchase the supplies they need and help bolster the community. Salvation Army is a church, so prayer is a big, is something that people can do immediately. And right now, pray for Western North Carolina, pray for upstate South Carolina. People are hurting and they need something that they can hold on to. And prayers and encouragement in the community and compassion is just invaluable. $1 helps. $5 helps. Whatever people can give is really important so we can continue our work in the community. All relief organizations can continue their work and help rebuild the upstate and also Western North Carolina.
Shelly, you mentioned just the tremendous amount of meals and the supplies that you and the Salvation Army have given out in this time. Are there other ways that the Salvation Army has been tasked to help or called in to help that most people wouldn't consider that's something that you do?
Absolutely. We have our emotional and spiritual care chaplains who are working alongside our mobile feeding units and helping people, just providing a listening ear. But they also have a list of resources. So if somebody says, I need help getting a tree off my house, they can help provide that guidance on who they can call and what relief organization can help with that. I think a lot of times people don't consider the compassion side of a survivor's needs. The Salvation Army works to meet the physical, spiritual, and emotional needs of people who are hurting after a disaster.
Shelly, it's a really fantastic thing that you guys have going on. My last question for you, when you talk about giving, what's the website? What's the way to give? Because I know right now there's a lot of, fake sites out there. How can people give?
Absolutely. You can go to rebuildcarolinas.org, and that will take you to the donation page. As I said before, rebuildcarolinas.org. 100% of the donation goes directly to support disaster survivors from Helene.
My last question for you here, Shelly, is we have Shelly Henderson, Salvation Army Divisional Director of Public Relations on the Fan Upstate with us. Has the Salvation Army had to battle some of the unfortunate misinformation that's been spreading out there, or have you found that, just the decades-long reputation of the Salvation Army has kind of insulated you from that?
We're just out there focused on providing hope and care to people in the community. We are who we are, and that is an organization that just wants to help people in their worst moment and provide for the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of them. We do this every day, and we've done it since 1865. I mean, a disaster can be losing your job, and we're here to help during those times, or a big, widespread disaster like Helene.
Shelly, we really appreciate your time. I know you mentioned earlier, you guys do so many different things, cutting down trees. I'll just tell you, I've used a chainsaw this week 4 times for the first time in ever, and I will be glad to volunteer any way I can, but you might not want me on the chainsaw crew.
Well, we are not the people that are cutting down, but we do partner with people that do that. I'm not sure that our focus is food and hydration and spiritual care.
We appreciate you, Shelly.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelly.
Absolutely. That's Shelly Henderson, the Divisional Director of Public Relations for the Salvation Army. Really good stuff there.
And it's good to know, just how focused the Salvation Army's efforts are. I mean, you can go and you can donate in a lot of different ways, and we certainly hope that you visit their website and donate to the Salvation Army, rebuildcarolinas.org. But there's a lot of people who give their donations to a lot of different, like American Red Cross or this place or that place or wherever, and they don't know really where their money is going.
Sure.
So I think it was really important, and I appreciate Shelly pointing that out. She says, if you give money here in the upstate, that money is staying right here in the upstate.
That's
it's
cool.
not like it's going to go off and head to Florida or Arizona. Not that Florida doesn't need it right now, because I'm sure Salvation Army is doing fantastic work down there as well. But it's great to know that your money stays here. You know exactly where it's going. You know exactly what it's set up to do: meals, hydration, spiritual support. So, what they do. And we're not long, Cole, from seeing the Salvation Army bell ringers outside of every store all over the upstate, right? That's just a couple of weeks away. We're going to start seeing it there. So if you want to support, even if you just have change, you have a couple pennies in your pocket, you can throw it in the jar there. And it's a big jar, right? It's a big jar that's been going on for a really, really long time. And they do fantastic work.
Really appreciate Shelly. She was awesome. And our Tolo Tom Diesel, who has been holding through the entire segment. He is dying to get in on the conversation. I'm sure it's Gamecock related. Tom, appreciate you holding. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? Hey, I got a trivia question, and I think you're going to be surprised with the answer.
Oh.
But obviously, with the great news that the GOAT, Spencer Rattler, is going to get to his first start on Sunday, there's been a total of 3 Gamecock quarterbacks to make a start in the NFL. Other than Rattler, do you know who the other 2 are?
To make a start.
To make a start.
Okay. Was Connor Shaw in Chicago one of them?
Chicago, yes. Connor Shaw's one.
I don't know. I'm stumped.
What was Dylan Thompson one of them?
He was not.
Oh.
So this is for regular season games.
Okay.
But the other answer, it's a hard one, but it's Anthony Wright.
Okay.
Now,
Anthony Wright.
Here's the thing. All 3 at their time at South Carolina beat one team. Do you know who that one team is?
Alabama.
No, sir. All three of them beat the sorry little Clemson Tigers. Okay,
Did he tell us who the third? Did he tell us who the third was?
Yeah.
Shaw, Anthony Wright, and who? I don't even remember.
Spencer. I guess he's meaning Spencer Rattler.
Spencer is the third.
Spencer,
Okay, gotcha.
Spencer is going to be
Spencer's
the
going to be the third. Gotcha.
Well, as of right now, it's 2.
Look at
with
that.
number 3
Look
incoming.
at that. Tom coming in with a little trivia.
I'm glad
like
Tom came in with that question because that's exactly what we have planned to talk about in the very next segment.
Wow, Tom.
Spencer Rattler going to get his start this weekend against the Buccaneers. How do we think he's going to do? Let's take a look at the Bucs defense. Spencer Rattler, remember back on his time at South Carolina. How do we think Spencer Rattler is going to perform this weekend against the Bucs? That's next on the Fan Upstate. As Tolo Tom, who just called in so eloquently put it, Cole, Spencer Rattler is about to be the third South Carolina Gamecock to get a start at quarterback in the NFL.
How about that?
Starting for the New Orleans Saints this weekend. God, I'm so excited for
Big
him.
deal, man.
I think he's going to find some success in his short tenure, however long he gets to play.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be solid for the New Orleans Saints, Cole. And it's not because we're trying to curry favor with South Carolina Gamecock fans. We'd never actually do that because we tell Gamecock fans like it is. If we thought Spencer was going to struggle in New Orleans, we would say it.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, Cole, they're facing a bad defense this week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, like, what would be some realistic numbers that we would like to see Spencer Rattler put up? Because he's going to be judged. He's going to be judged ultimately on completion percentage, touchdowns, fumbles, interceptions.
Yeah. I think you take care of the football. You know, ultimately in your very first start, even with it being against a subpar defense, Diesel in Tampa Bay, take care of the football.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cost your team opportunities to where you're now faced with, you know, the defense having to, you know, come out onto the field. Tampa Bay has a short field, a good quarterback, a good offense, good play caller. You don't want to put your defense in tough situations from day one. Take care of the football. I don't know how conservative it will be, Diesel. It will be interesting to watch. But he's not going to throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. I don't expect that. He may. I don't expect that. I just say, Spencer, go out there, play loose, play free, and take care of the football.
So who is this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense he's going to be going up against? Again, I said bad defense. They are 30th in the NFL in total defense. They've given up 12 touchdowns on the season, 28th in pass defense. That bodes real well for Spencer Rattler. He's a little bit of a gunslinger, you know, likes to run, likes to get outside of the pocket, likes to create with his legs. And the Saints are real good at protecting their quarterback. They haven't given up more than 1 sack per game this season. Now, that might go up a little bit with Spencer Rattler being a little nervous, playing in his first NFL game. But this Saints defense, Cole, is real good at keeping Derek Carr upright. And if they can do the same thing for Spencer Rattler this weekend, I think we're looking at a really solid debut for this quarterback. You know, he's coming into a good situation with good wide receivers, with a good running game. Just don't mess it up. Don't fumble the ball on your handoffs. Don't throw picks. Don't put the ball into unnecessary situations. And I think you're going to be okay.
I think that the intangibles are there. Like everything that you look at a quarterback and need in the NFL, and we talk about it all the time, a good college quarterback doesn't always transfer to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at Spencer Rattler and what he can be.
Now you're talking like Dabo Sweeney, who transfers from – we got a roster full of transfers from high school.
Oh, no, he don't say the T word, right? When you talk about what this guy has, his physical attributes. I'm not trying to make some bold statement, but his physical attributes, they're as good as they get. Like, yeah, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen has a bigger arm, and I'm not saying he's the most athletic guy in the NFL. I'm just saying when it comes to being successful in the NFL, there are a lot of factors. Situation matters, head coach matters, your play caller matters, your play calling in your system, your scheme matters. Ask Josh Allen this season compared to other seasons. Those things are going to be very important factors when you talk about Spencer Rattler's success. I'm just saying from the physical gifts that Rattler has, I don't think the struggle is going to be making throws to, the far boundary or anything like that. I think it's just going to come down to the fit and are the guys around them the best fit for him. I hope and pray Diesel. I want to see Spencer Rattler succeed. I really do.
Yeah, and just decision-making at this point, don't throw the ball. You could get away with some throws in college that you cannot get away with in the NFL. He was sacked a lot last year in Columbia. Again, the Saints offensive line is real good at protecting the quarterback. So I expect Spencer to have a good debut. You said it. Don't put the ball on the ground. Don't put the ball in the other team's hands. And I think you're going to find some success.
The last thing I'll say, the only concern that I have, the game might be super fast to him. He's not to the point yet where he has enough time and experience under his belt or the game slowed down, right? We hear quarterbacks all the time, Diesel, second season, 8, 9 games in, talk about they were so much more comfortable because the game slowed down. That's my fear. I don't know if the game through practice and the reps he's seen feels slow to him yet, but it's going to be fun to watch. Speaking of fun to watch, the Furman Paladins were fun to watch on Saturday against the Citadel. We'll talk to the head ball coach, Clay Hendrix, next. had a big win over the weekend, Diesel. It was a close one, but the Paladins came out on top over the Citadel 17-16. We will hopefully have Clay Hendrix here momentarily. I was unable to reach him on the first attempt, but we'll try back. You know, it's interesting in the SoCon because I know that some teams are good and some teams are bad, Diesel, but all these teams are pretty even, in my opinion. The SoCon is a very underrated conference. It's a tough one, and the Citadel showed to be, even though they're not having the best year, they were still a tough out for Furman on Saturday, a game where the Citadel Diesel jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and the Citadel had to make it the Furman Paladins had to come back in the fourth quarter and get the last score, but a big win for Furman on Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of parity in this conference right now. Mercer now, obviously, they've played a lot more conference games than others have. They played a lot of conference games early. They're sitting at 3-0 in the league, but then you've got Samford, Furman, and Western Carolina all sitting at 1-0. Most of these teams are sitting with a 2-2, 2-3, 3-2 kind of overall record. Not that the overall record matters for the conference, at least, but you know, you've got a lot of parity in this conference, so it really kind of is anybody's league this year. Mercer has the head start, but Samford and Furman, Western Carolina, all right there behind them. So this is going to be fascinating to see how this race continues to play out as we get deeper and deeper into the season. And that's certainly going to make that game that Furman missed against Samford loom large, because that head-to-head could really matter.
It really could. And speaking of Furman Paladins football, we're joined right now by the head football coach of the Furman Paladins, Coach Clay Hendrix. Coach, we appreciate you hopping on with us. Congratulations on the win on Saturday for your football team, 17-16 win over the Citadel in a game where the Citadel jumped out to an early lead, but you guys got the last laugh.
Well, thank you. It was certainly good to win. It's always good to win, but win a rivalry game, and I think 104th meeting. I think that was maybe my 31st Furman Citadel game. So, but no, proud of our kids. We didn't play very well, but we played well when we had to, and I guess when it counted, I think we finished the game with 5 3-and-outs on defense, and played really well offensively in the fourth quarter, and did what we had to do to get it done.
Coach, besides discipline, which is something, you know, people always talk about when they discuss the service academies and the way they play football, what's kind of always been a hallmark that you've noticed coaching on the other sideline of just watching Citadel football?
Well, I think it's that. You know, I coached 10 years at the Air Force Academy, so I think I kind of know that world a little bit. You know, same thing I said about them last week, you know, and I think against us, I think we always seem to get everybody's best shot, but, you know, they've always been well coached. You know, schematically, they're a little different. You know, we defended the triple option for so many years, so they're not doing that, which is one thing you don't have to make the adjustment for. But I don't know. They got, you know, they're kids. You can just watch them, the way they play. They play extremely hard. Maury Strayton's in his second year there, and he's doing a really good job. And they certainly were better, or been better the 2 years that he's been there. And, you know, I got a lot of respect for them, their institution. I think we probably believe in a lot of the same things. And I think anytime you play somebody like that, it makes it tough.
We're talking to Clay Hendrix, the head football coach of the Furman Paladins. Coach, you said just a few minutes ago that you guys didn't play extremely well on Saturday. In what facets, what areas do you point back to and see where you guys, in your opinion, have to have improvement?
Well, to be honest with you, I got asked a similar question the other day. I think we got to improve everywhere. I just don't think we're playing real well anywhere on a consistent basis. Now, at times we are doing some good things, but we, you know, I don't know, in 5 games, you know, we obviously lost the game because of the hurricane, but, you know, just I don't know that we've played a half of a football game where we felt like we played really well. Now, I will say this, our kids compete and they hang in there and they find a way, and we are getting better. But I told somebody, with the exception of our kickoff guy kicks in the end zone about every time. Other than him, I'm just, we're just not as consistent as we need to be. And we just got to keep improving everywhere. And, we are a really young group. We've had 13 surgeries. So we got even younger, throughout this time, but they fight and they hang in there. And you know what, if you don't do those things, it doesn't matter what else you do. So I think we've got that. We have some talent. We got some young guys who are getting better, and it's just, we just got to keep working at it.
Coach, your defense held Citadel to a season low, 16 points for them. What was the secret to doing so? Was it execution? Was it scheme against them? And how do you replicate it this weekend against Chattanooga that's kind of been up and down offensively as well?
Yeah, well, Chattanooga's going to be a little different. They're going to be a little more skilled, much more in the passing game. The disappointing thing a little bit with the Citadel game is we let them kind of play to their strength, and they slowed the game down. I was watching the play clock. In some ways, I thought I was playing the old triple option team. They were snapping it, trying to shorten the game a little bit. And then, I think really when you look at what they did, their whole offense in the first half seemed to be third down conversions. And again, I don't want to take credit from them, but a lot of mistakes we made. We had 2 penalties on 2 fourth down plays for extended drives. And I think we just kind of cleaned that up in the second half. And our kind of philosophy is the same every week: take the run away from them, and then get after the passer. And we let them extend too many plays by conversions on third down, and then finally we started getting off the field. It gave our offense more opportunities. I think we ran 17 plays on offense in the first half. And so if you're doing that, you better be really good on offense in those 17 plays, and we weren't. So the best thing was we were only down 10-0 at the half. But again, I just really pleased with how our kids responded.
Coach, you mentioned the game against Samford that was postponed during the hurricane. Diesel and I were talking about that game yesterday, I believe. Is there any update that you can give on if that game or how it could be made up?
Well, I mean, I don't know how it can be made up, unless something happens. They had their bye actually the week before our game. Our bye's in a couple of weeks. In football, can't play twice in a week. And then you'll have that week after the regular season ends when the playoffs start. And yeah, you got that week, but our plan still to be playing that week in the playoffs. So I don't really know, unless something just really odd occurs. I don't know how we can make it up, which is certainly disappointing.
Coach, when you're going back, studying film, looking for weaknesses on a team that you have coming up this week in the game that you have against Chattanooga, how far back do you like to go? How far do you say, all right, this is still relevant information that we're getting out of a team and film from 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago? Or do you look more recent? Well, here's what they're doing right now.
You look at most of this season. A lot of people change from one year to the next. What's unusual about this game, this will be the third time we've played them in less than a year. We played them in early November last year for the conference championship, and then we played them in the second round of the playoffs here. And then here we are, less than a year later and for the third time. So they haven't had a lot of changes. They had a change. The defense coordinator is new, but the guy that's calling it was there a year ago, and they haven't changed a lot. The offense coordinator is the same guy. So they really have not changed a whole lot. But, you watch them throughout the year, and, I think people sometimes get a little hung up in people's records. They opened with Tennessee. Then they played a Georgia State team really well, who turned around and beat Vanderbilt the next week. So I just think you got to be a little careful in looking in scores, but certainly we pay a lot of attention. We watched the Tennessee game, but it's kind of like our Ole Miss game. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of that by watching it. So, and they're playing their best football of the year. Had a huge win last week in a rivalry game against a really good East Tennessee team on the road. So they're playing the best. They got a little more confidence. And I think they were a little bit like us, after the way our season started. Probably one of the biggest challenges for us was just getting a little confidence from how it started.
Coach, I want to ask a big picture question when it comes to your offense. Obviously, with the new play caller this season, it does change the way you guys do things and how you operate. But, as a head coach, most of the time we hear that, offenses want to be balanced, right? You want to be as close to balanced as you can be. What, in your mind, in the experience that you have, what dictates that balance more, in your opinion? Is it about the personnel that you have or the guys that you're going against each week?
Well, I actually think, to me, balance is you're having the ability to do both. And, whether you're a 200 team or whatever that is, but to me, balance is not 50-50 run versus pass. And so I think it's just having the ability to run the ball. Yet, I just don't think you can win in the age of college football without being really good in the passing game. I think you even look at the academies right now, and the two that are, Navy and Army are playing really well. Navy, Drew Cronick, who was my offense coordinator here my first years, now the offense coordinator there, and Drew, they throw around a lot more, and so I just think it's being balanced, having the ability to do both. So people just you can't just be one dimensional. I think is what it comes down to. And especially if you don't have an option element to your offense, which we don't have a big most of our option element right now is the RPO game. So I just think that's kind of where it starts. And, we got a true freshman quarterback who's going to be starting I think maybe his fourth game Saturday. He's getting better. He's doing some really good stuff. He's a really talented guy. I think one of the challenges for me has been a little bit, I'm an old offensive line coach, and what is success for us in the running game? Now, we haven't run it nearly as well as we like, but I think there's some years where success was much more as far as yards, those type things. And so I think a little bit it's playing to his strength. His strength is to stretch the field, throwing the football, and continue building the run game. And, I just think it makes it harder to defend when you can do that.
Coach, can you speak to the camaraderie among head coaches in the Southern Conference? There's only 9 of these positions. You occupy one of them. Who do you feel that you have the most commonality in philosophy and personality with? And who do you look at? And I'm not trying to get you to throw shade on anybody, but who do you look at and say, man, that guy's on another planet?
That's a good question. I think it's really kind of interesting. I think all of our guys seem to get along pretty well. We're in those meetings and we agree, a lot about people bring up ideas about things we agree with, disagree with. And the meetings I've been in have all been pretty civil. This year, I know we had a couple of new coaches. It seems like you have maybe one or two every year. It's funny, Rusty Wright at Chattanooga. I was a young assistant when Rusty was a player at Chattanooga. So I've known Rusty for a long time. In fact, he called me the Sunday after our Ole Miss game, and he had played Tennessee and had a similar kind of result. And I think he just said, "I'm just checking on you." I said, "Well, I appreciate you checking on me, But I don't know. I think I got a pretty good rapport with all those guys. I really don't have a problem. I'm trying to think even the time that I've been here. There may be a reason you don't maybe care for one maybe as much as the other, but by and large, I enjoy. I don't know Kerwin Bell very well, but every time I'm around him, I like him, and I think for me, it's how people treat you, and it's no different if it's a Power 5 place, and if it's Dabo or Shane Beamer, I think it just goes in how people treat you and how people are around you, and I can say that about Chris Hatcher, a guy that's been around. Chris is the same every time I ever see him. Win, loss, we've had some big battles, and so I don't know. Actually, I can't imagine it's that way lots of places, but in our league, I think it's been a pretty good setup.
We're talking to Coach Clay Hendrix, the head football coach of the Furman Paladins. Coach, my last question for you before we send you off and wish you good luck for another weekend of Furman Paladin football. Were you able to watch your former SoCon Player of the Year last night in Tyler Huff as Jacksonville State had a huge win?
Yeah, I did. I watched some. I know. I knew it was going to be on. I got home and then I actually thought about it, flipped over there, and it's funny. It's funny. After our Citadel games, one of the first guys I heard from was Tyler Huff. He had watched it, and And what an awesome guy. I wish we could have kept him around here. It was he got his master's degree here in December. He had a 6-year. He owed the Army 6 months for his National Guard duty. And at the time, I really wasn't even sure he was going to play. He's been married for a couple of years, and he was saying, hey, it's time. I think it's time I let my wife get her school finished and me go to work. And, and what we had done recruiting here, and, you're always trying to, how does it affect your program? So we were never really talked about that. He didn't have a lot of opportunities. And then certainly Jacksonville State, I think that was a good fit for him. He's really good with the ball in his hands, and but just proud of him, what he's doing. You can just tell, the confidence he plays with. I'm sure those teammates love him just like ours did. And man, I'm happy for him. And he's fun. He's a fun guy to watch play.
Coach, I want to bring you into a conversation that we had earlier in the show. We were talking about if we were head coaches, and we would lose a lot of football games if Cole and I were head coaches. But if we were head coaches, what would the hallmarks of our teams be? And we were throwing around things like, oh, I want to be at air raid. I want to throw the ball over the place. Or, I want to run the veer. And all I know from the veer, I learned from Matthew McConaughey in We Are Marshall.
Which wouldn't been a lot.
No, not a lot there. And I said, hey, who's running the power eye these days? Is anybody going old school running the power eye? Are you a fan of bringing in some old school concepts back into football? And in what ways maybe have you seen some things like, oh, I haven't seen that in years, but now it's working its way back in?
Well, I think you see it really on both sides of the ball. And, we always say sometimes you could probably go to a game and line up in the I formation under center, and the other team probably would look at you and not know what that is because you don't see it very often. But I don't know. I think that's what's kind of interesting. What I've hated a little bit is some of the rule changes. The low blocking I've not liked because I think low blocking was such an equalizer in our sport. And nobody could ever show me, Paul Johnson used to say this to me, nobody's ever shown us any information where low blocks create any more injuries, But I don't know. I'm an old option guy at heart. And, what Drew's doing up at Navy. And, Drew's dad was a wing T guy in high school. And he's mixing all those things, a lot of things we mixed the first year that we were here. But I don't know. I think that's what keeps our game interesting because everybody's doing the same thing. At the end of the day, whoever's got the best players is probably going to win. And so where can you be a little different? Where can be a little hard to plan for? So no, I think that's a huge part of our game, and the rules certainly have changed some of it. And then people are trying to recruit kids, and certain kids don't want to play in certain type systems. Which has to play into it. So, but I think it's forever changing. I think you'll see it evolve. A couple of the academies, went away from it, the triple, and then Army came back to it. They kind of took a year and it didn't work out real well. So I think you can still be successful doing a lot of that stuff. But the field, you just got to have the ability to spread some people out because bodies are so big, people are so fast. If you're going to turn it into a phone booth game where everybody's packed in there together, man, it is going to put you at a big disadvantage.
Coach, we so much appreciate your time. Best of luck this weekend against Chattanooga, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
Hey, thank you. It's always great being with you.
Absolutely. You, that's Coach Clay Hendrix, the head football coach of the Furman Paladins. A big one, Diesel. He mentioned Chattanooga's a little bit different of a team than the Citadel that they played on. And that's no disrespect to the Citadel, but they're ranked in the top 25. They're going to be a huge test here in Greenville.
Yeah, it's so interesting that the different styles of just schools and institutions that you have in the Southern Conference, and you've always had that. You've got a handful of big schools, Western Carolina, Chattanooga, East Tennessee State. Those are the state schools that have different fundings and different options there. And then, of course, you got a lot of smaller private schools playing some really good football in the Southern Conference.
Man.
Me too.
I really do. It's a fun conference. And it was fun to see Tyler Huff last night. I was watching that game hoping my upset pick would happen. And I'm like, oh, there's Tyler Huff. He had a good game. I think 2 touchdowns. But what I was really surprised was how good Jacksonville State was on the ground from another local guy. Here's the reason I love watching those smaller schools. You hear names from around here. You're like, I remember him. Trey Stewart, who was from Winston-Salem, played at Limestone, now at Jacksonville State. Heck of a running back. Had a really good game last night, 2 or 3 touchdowns, I believe. It's fun watching those and hearing, talk about Greenville, South Carolina, and Gaffney. It's a lot of fun. So I'm ready for tonight. Some more college football on tap.
When we come back, Cole, we'll jump back to a conversation that we had earlier to start the show, as a matter of fact. What schools inside the top 25, what teams inside the top 25 in the AP rankings are really, really, really in a tough spot this weekend? If they go down this weekend, who probably pushes themselves out of playoff contention? That's next. Upset Picks Challenge for week number 7, live and in color right here, waiting for your picks. Text in 71307. Give us your name, your game, and the spread. Scotty from BMW checking in on this one. He says, give me James Madison over Coastal Carolina, 7.5 points. Well, Scotty from BMW, Coastal Carolina are the underdogs in this game.
Yeah.
So you'd have to take Coastal Carolina over James Madison.
And that starts in an hour, by the way.
I just want to make sure that's the game you want and make sure you didn't make a mistake there. We have Bo Mo, who wants Vanderbilt plus 13.5 against Kentucky, thinking maybe Vandy's going to ride the hot wave and keep going.
Yep.
Let's see. Falcon Jeremy got in a while ago, about 35 minutes ago, says he wants South Florida over Memphis plus 7. We got a couple more Tolos who have gotten their picks in over the last hour or so. Trey from Kentucky, Mason Brew, Frank Wagner, Mark L.O. Ducks. Appreciate you guys. Mark L.O. Ducks is in California right now.
Whoa.
He says he can't listen to the show, but he still gets his upset pick in.
Did they ban us in California? Is that what happened?
I don't know. But the question is, what's everybody else's excuse? Why aren't you getting your picks in? Mark L.O. Ducks is on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
He's in a different time zone. He's
Wesley
3
Roberts,
hours back.
Same way. He's in.
Yeah.
Wesley is usually in another country when he gets his in. And by the way, can I get my upset
international
pick in?
man of mystery?
Diesel?
No, you already got your upset pick in, and you got trounced, Cole.
I tried.
That's because you're being silly. Okay, you're being silly, taking the big old upsets.
It's not going to
thinking
happen.
that you're going to hit on one of these, and it's just not going to happen.
I'm going to ask you again tomorrow. Maybe I'm hoping tomorrow you forget.
So we're 6 weeks into the season, 5 weeks into the season, 6 games into the season for some of these teams. And the question is, Cole, who's basically already out of the college football playoff picture? It's easy to look at those teams in the 20 to 25 range plus above that saying, yeah, you got no real shot of getting into this thing. But there's a handful, Cole, who are sitting right there, 20 or below, and they might have a chance to still make this thing unless they lose a game this weekend. And that's what we started the show. That's what we're going to keep going on this segment, show, Cole. Whose hopes could be over if they lose this weekend? Who do we think still has time? Who do we think still has the schedule? Who do we think still has the prestige? Because let's be real, that matters, right? The playoff committee, they are certainly guilty of helmet scouting sometimes. And they'll say that having the largest fan bases and the most engaged fan bases isn't a factor in this thing, but you'd be lying if it wasn't. If the choice came down, Cole, to the 13th spot, well, technically the 11th spot, because the G5 champ's probably going to get the 12 seed. If we're talking about the 11th spot and it came down to Alabama versus Oklahoma State, who do you think they're putting in?
Yeah.
They're putting in Alabama because they got the brand power.
What I love most about this conversation is it's so fluid in a way that, like, yeah, what you do matters. But Diesel, the fun part about the conversation is if you have a L in the loss column, right? Not only does it matter what you do in the future, it also matters what that team that you lost to does, because that impacts how the committee views you. If you're a team that has 2 losses, you're an SEC team, the season comes to an end, you're on that bubble, if you will, of getting in or being left out of the playoffs.
And in some ways, Cole, I think that can be unfair. If you try to compare 2 teams that played in week 2 to how they're playing in week 12, then you're potentially talking about 2 very different football teams. You know, people will go back and say, oh, well, you lost to so-and-so who might have been 3-1 at the time, but by week number 12, that team is a 3-9 team. And you're saying, well, you lost to a 3-9 team. Well, no, we lost to a 3-1 team.
And it may very well be unfair, but the reality of it is when you have the human element helping decide who gets in and who is left out, you're going to have those conversations. Some teams are going to feel like it's very unfair, while some, are not having any issues with it. Sorry, Florida State, but it's not fair.
We had a system for a while, Cole, that was really good at taking the human element out of it. It was called the BCS. They used the computers. The models told them who the best teams were. Well, then we introduced this little thing called subjectivity. And now we have a committee. We have a round table full of people just sitting there chopping it up, talking football, but we aren't privy to any of those conversations. We don't get to understand why they made the decision that they made. Most of the time, it's like when the referees make a bad call at the end of the game.
Yeah.
They make the bad call,
They run
and
out
then
of the
they
stadium.
run out because they don't want to get pelted with rocks and beer cans. So, Cole, well, let's look at a couple teams who are sitting there on the bubble right now.
Okay.
Who have an opportunity maybe to continue playing their way into a playoff or could fall back out of the race. Let's look at number 16, Utah, a team that a lot of people thought was the shoe-in to go in and win the Big 12. The Big 12 has a lot of parity this year, so this is probably one of the tougher ones to answer the question on. But 4-1 right now, playing an unranked Arizona State. If they lost this weekend, they would have back-to-back losses to teams from the state of Arizona. They would lose to Arizona and Arizona State back-to-back. If Utah loses a second game in a row, Cole, are they cooked out of the college football playoff picture?
Well, I think so, because Utah's in a position where they don't get a lot of benefit of the doubt. It's not like the committee's just going to say, well, but it's Utah. But it's Alabama. That happens, right? That conversation does happen. But it's Georgia. That conversation happens. But it's Utah. I don't know if that conversation's ever happened. So, no, to your question, I think with them already having a loss, Diesel, if they lose Saturday, and again, this is not us saying if they will or won't or what our opinions are on the outcome, but if they lose Saturday, they're in deep trouble.
Yeah, because then they've got number 14 BYU coming up in a couple of weeks in November, and then Iowa State in late November. But there's two teams that have numbers, little bitty numbers right next to their name right now, but they don't have that brand cachet either. If you're in the Big 12 last year, the year before, and down the stretch, you go and you beat a Texas. You go and you beat an Oklahoma. People say, whoa, they beat Texas and Oklahoma late in the year. Well, now it's newcomers BYU and, the perennial ankle biters in Iowa State. Yeah. And it's great that you beat a team with little numbers next to their name, but I just don't think that those teams still have enough brand power. So I'm with you. I think if Utah loses this weekend, they're pretty much cooked. They probably fall outside of the top 22. Maybe
they could drop all the way.
They could drop all the way out.
They could.
And then could they claw back to the 11 spot? That's where you're, that's kind of the cutoff now.
It is.
You got to be up there in that top 10, top 12 to stand a chance so that the committee will maybe think highly of you and put you back in. Let's go to number 8, Tennessee, Cole. They take on Florida in Knoxville this weekend. That would be a big old perception hit if you lose to Florida, a team that everybody thinks sucks and is on the verge of firing their head coach. They got a tough road after this, Cole. You lose to Florida, I think they're also out of the college football playoff.
Well, they do stink, and they do have a head coach that's on the way out, right? And that's the reality. The perception is reality when it comes to Florida. Perception hit? Are you kidding me? Oh, God. I don't know how. Look, I say this tongue in cheek.
Might as well lose to Vandy at that point.
I don't know how you recover if you're Tennessee and you lose to Florida this weekend, which, by the way, that'd be a home game for Tennessee. It's in Knoxville. You just came off of a loss. You should be focused. You should be ready to bounce back. I don't think there's any way it happens. However, you talk about perception hit. I don't know. We've seen Tennessee football come back from, I don't want to say the grave, but they were with Butch Jones. Let's just call it like it is. They were close to the grave.
Who was the guy that used to wear the orange pants? What was that? What was that head coach of Tennessee? About. Dooley?
Yeah.
Derek Dooley.
By the way, I like Derek Dooley. I'll tell you why later. But you talk about falling down. I don't say you go all the way down as far as you were or as bad as you were when you had Butch Jones, but boy, you lose to Florida, and all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how much money your NIL quarterback's making, you're in trouble.
Let's play the flip side of that just for a second before we move on to the next team that we're going to talk about here. If you're Florida and you get this win against Tennessee, how much leeway does that buy you if you're Billy Napier, if at all?
Oh, it has to buy something.
You think so?
It has to, right? You beat 10.
Do you really think that fan base wants him back under any circumstances?
No.
He's not their type of guy.
But here's what I go back to. The fan base doesn't. I agree. It doesn't matter. They don't want him. But does the administration feel the same way the fan base feels? That's the question, right? If you go beat Tennessee, the reality of it is it doesn't matter what the fan base thinks, does it? You won 3 in a row. I mean, again,
and you beat a top 10 Tennessee on the road.
What a freaking conversation they'd have to have. I'll tell you this. If I'm the admin at Florida, I hope we don't win. I don't want to have that conversation. I'm pulling for us to lose.
You want to have every reason to fire Billy and make the decision easy, because then, Cole, as much as the Florida fan base hates Billy Napier, and I'm sure the feeling is probably pretty unanimous among them, there will be those few who come back and say, well, I don't know, you did beat Tennessee on the road.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, like,
you don't want it to happen. You don't want it to happen.
Cole, let's go to Oklahoma at number 18. They are facing number 1 Texas this weekend. They lose to Texas, I think they're safe. I think they're still right there in that conversation. I don't think they fall much farther than maybe 20. You know, you lose to Texas, a team that everybody knows is really, really, really good. I don't think it's that much of a hit if you're Oklahoma. Now, you still have a tough road to play your way into that conversation, but I don't think it pushes you so far out that you can't make up that distance.
They have 1 loss, right?
Yep.
It's like being you went to Walmart, Diesel, and you were proud of yourself. You bought a really nice lawn chair. And I don't mean one of those lawn chairs that are $10. I mean one that like holds the big guys, right?
Yeah,
you bought one of those
pistons
lawn
on it.
chairs. Yeah, and you left it in the yard during Hurricane Helene. Well, it made it through the first part of the storm, and then the eye comes, and you're like, oh, maybe this thing's okay. But you really know deep down that lawn chair that you bought for $35 is fixing to get gone quick because of what's coming. It's the same way with Oklahoma here. I mean, yeah, they may be safe for 14 seconds, but there's just, the reality of it is no, is my answer. If they lose, you can go ahead and start putting nails in the coffin.
Dunzo.
Yep. I think
Interesting. Twisted Whisker says Florida has only lost to 2 teams. That one is a top 10 and the other just beat a top 10.
Oh,
point taken.
Okay.
Twisted Whisker. I mean, they're losing to good football teams.
Hey, we better listen to Twisted Whisker. He's winning the.
Yeah, he's smart.
He's winning the
he's in
upset
first place.
Okay, so
he's in first place.
All right, we'll shut up.
And finally, Cole, let's look at Notre Dame sitting at number 11. Notre Dame has that big, ugly loss to Northern Illinois on the schedule already. In your mind, does Notre Dame have to run the table to get into the college football playoff?
So opposite of the very first team we talked about, they have the brand power. Right? They have the benefit of the doubt. I still think they better win. Like, if you lose and now all of a sudden you're talking about 2 losses, not just 2 losses, 2 very bad losses, I don't see how the brand power and the benefit of the doubt can overcome the bad losses. So I say, I mean, you talk about top 11. Remember, you said 11.
Yep.
Top 11.
Got back to number 11 after that NIU loss.
You lose this one. I don't know that you'll find your way back there.
Yeah, if you're Notre Dame and you're losing to good football teams on your schedule, like Southern Cal,
you won't find many of those.
You're okay, right? You're okay, but you can't lose to the sub 500 Stanfords, and you can't lose to NIU. What is NIU right now? By the way, I'm going to look up their schedule. I mean, their record.
Yeah, I know they have lost 2. I believe I could be wrong.
They're 3-2.
Yep.
With wins over Western Illinois, UMass, and Notre Dame.
Ooh.
They lost to Buffalo and they lost to NC State. Now, this NIU team, Cole, not a bad football team, and they lost by 3 to Buffalo. Buffalo's always a really good team in the MAC. I don't know really how good Buffalo is this year, but they lost to a Power 5 NC State by a touchdown. They didn't get blown out by a touchdown. As a matter of fact, their 2 combined losses, Cole, come as a combined 10 points. So wow. I think NIU is a sneaky good football team, but nobody in that committee room is going to give Notre Dame any credit whatsoever for losing to a sneaky good Northern Illinois team.
I have a very interesting piece of Connor Stallion's audio, Diesel, to play for you, for the Tolos, and hear your reaction as we close the show next. Diesel, it's interesting when you talk about Connor Stallions, sign stealing. I have not watched the documentary yet, by the way. You asked me, and I forgot about it.
It's so good.
I'm going to try to do it tonight.
It's
I really
so
would.
good.
If I can do it tonight, maybe that'll provide a little bit of conversation tomorrow to come back and react to. But I do – go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's going to have you back and forth. Like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he really, really dedicated to his team, or is he like evil genius?
Oh, so I've watched a lot of video like interviews he's done recently.
Mm-hmm.
My perception of him right now is he's a freaking genius. That's my perception right now. Pre-documentary, before I've watched the documentary Diesel, right now I think he's a genius. Is he, was he in the wrong? Sure, maybe. I don't know. But my perception right now is he's a genius. Now, I found this audio fascinating. I heard this today on social media. It's Connor Stallions being asked Diesel when it comes to sign stealing. We have this new technology in college football now with the green dot, right?
Mm-hmm.
One on each offense, defense. Being able to communicate with the players directly. Connor Stallions was asked on a podcast, I believe it was a Barstool podcast, about if the new technology made it more difficult or easier to steal signs in 2024.
Because now they're going to the comps.
Comms.
Is it much more difficult to steal
So
signs now?
it's actually signal stealing is happening more now. College, that new helmet communications, it's not a rule, right? It's not a mandate. It's just a feature. It's a tool. So now coaches can talk to the quarterbacks. That doesn't mean they have to signal or that doesn't mean they have to huddle or that they want to huddle. So what's happening now, and this isn't for everyone, but a lot of teams are doing this. They are continuing to go up tempo. They are stealing the defensive signal, and now they can just talk to the quarterback up until 15 seconds and tell them exactly what's coming. So, hey, they're blitzing the nickel, they're dropping the boundary end, throw the slant to the slot, whatever it is. Now you can do that. There's already, I'm not going to say who, it's not a Big Ten school, but there's already been a team that has had Bluetooth to the quarterback for years.
What do you think about that?
Oh, accusations.
Look, I do like that he's honest. Like, post everything that's happened. He's very blunt about what's happened, about what's going on now. And maybe in a way, Diesel, he talks about that green dot technology with the comms, making it a little easier because now the coach can talk directly to the player and tell him the sign.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big part of that. And look, every coach has to come out and say, oh, it's terrible what Connor Stallions was doing. But I guarantee you every single coach in football would love to have a Connor Stallions.
And probably already do.
Yeah, and have somebody like that. He was just the best.
He was the best
at doing it. Cole, I wonder at what point are we going to see or hear a story about some coach, some guy, some rogue Connor Stallions type on a team hacking the other team's comms? Because I mean, let's be real. We do that all the time in this country when we're trying to get intel on an enemy that we're facing in a battle. Yeah, I mean, like, how hard is it to hack the signal? I guarantee you it's, for somebody who knows what they're doing, it's probably very, very easy. Do you really think?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Do you really think that they're using some like hardcore scrambling technology to hide and code their transmissions so that the other team can't pick it up? No. You can probably pick it up with like a $10 thing from Radio Shack.
That's a good question because obviously each team has their own technology, right?
Sure.
I saw Will Muschamp one time, D's on the sideline before a game. I was like right behind him. Their comms quit working, and the comm guy got fired on the spot.
Ooh.
Before the game started by Will Muschamp. True story.
Talk to you tomorrow at Tolos for show number 140. Don't forget, tomorrow is your last day, your last chance to get in your upset picks for week number 7. If you haven't yet made your selection, be ready to do it tomorrow starting at 3 o'clock on the Fan Upstates.